We asked for the studios to come into the next iteration of television with us, into the era of streaming, and compensate the writers in relation to basically what's happening and adjust to the reality of what a writing career is now, the reality of what television is now. And they essentially ignored our requests. I mean, they didn't ignore them, but what they came back with was so unserious. They, essentially wanted a strike. We voted 98% as a union, 97.85% technically, for a strike authorization. And we have been on strike for a month today.
Couple good things that have happened from the strike. Couple good things that, from my perspective, you could tell me 25 other good things, but I'm sure there's some challenges as well to a strike.
Sure, like no money.
Shouldn't your union give you some money?
They do. They have interest-free loans, and they have. There's also an account that writers have access to, but my husband and I have not taken advantage of it because it's really also for crews and other people who are not doing the labor action that are out of jobs, and there's a fund for them as well. So the Writers Guild does have money for us, and they also are continuing to pay for my health care.
Okay, good. All right. So here's two of the good things that I am assuming or that I would perceive that would come from this. One, you get to walk around and promote this book, right?
That's true.
That's a big benefit.
Yes.
That if you weren't on strike, you wouldn't be able to do as much of that. So, and the other thing is that I'm sure it's kind of nice to have a little bit of extra time.
It's interesting. I am interested myself because this has been a possibility for a long time because we knew when our contract was up, and something that my husband is also a television writer, and so as a family it was very high stakes for us as a pair. So it's something we've been talking about and discussing and preparing for a while.
So you and your husband, you planned for this.
So we planned for this. We were aware of it. And I think neither one of us, it's both of our first strikes because the last one was 15 years ago. And, there is, first of all, there's an element of, not having the built-in creativity every day that I think we weren't prepared for how that kind of affected us mentally. It reminds me actually of when I went to college. I'd been a competitive basketball player for my entire youth from 6th grade through senior year, and I got to college and I wasn't doing that anymore, and I was really sad. I had these big mood changes, and I realized that I had 2 hours of endorphins baked into my day every day of my life, and now that had to be self-driven. And so there's a self-driven element to it, and then there is this free-floating anxiety, and there's also the emotion of feeling frustrated, I think, with the studio's disrespect for what we're making. I think that's what we've been feeling in a way that I had not anticipated. Is it makes me sad. Because I think TV is super cool. And
of course you do, because you're in TV.
Yeah, but so are they. So are the people.
They think they're different.
They do.
They think they're different.
They think they're different, and they think, and look, I understand that you got to do stuff for money, but also if you're saying that you're very poor and you're not making any money, do you all know that your shareholder calls are public and you've just told them that streaming is super profitable? I understand the realities of business, but you're blowing smoke and we can all see it, and you're just kind of saying, these writers want too much when it's
what I wish everybody would, and this is what I'm hearing a little bit, I just wish everybody would know that this basic human instinct, all of us, we're going to fight for ours, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think everybody gets disconnected. Business owners get disconnected. Employees get disconnected, whatever that is. Support people, independent contractors. Every human being is kind of programmed to fight for yours.
Yeah.
And when whoever they are can box us in places, right? They kind of start dictating some control. And you know what? Most of the time, too many people bow down to it.
Yes.
Right? I'm not trying to have anarchy all over the world, but so, I'm not in a union myself, right? But I can have respect for it. And it's always interesting to me sitting on the outside like, oh, how's this going to play out?
I mean, and what's interesting to me is like their entire business model is what we make. Not now. For the first time ever, that's actually not as true as it has been in years past because of Apple and Amazon, who make their money other places. But they're negotiating as a union, or as a unit.
Yep.
And we make all of it. Like, it's not like, we are, we make the legs of the table. And so you might have to figure out a way to balance the wood that you get from somewhere else on top of something different.
There's some alternative way to get this done, right?
Yeah. It's like if you make television, we write television. And so it's really, so that's been very interesting. We do have more time. But I think there is an anxiety about like getting out of shape.
100%.
100%.
Because it's essential. What I found in life, no matter if it's playing sports, organized or not, if it is singing or playing an instrument, if it is in business, if it's friendships, if it's interpersonal relationships, practice is important.
Mm-hmm.
And if you fall out of practice, you're going to lose some of your edge, some of the skill. So what do you think's going to happen? You're a month in, what's going to happen?
So I do think that the writers are going to come out the other side
better,
getting what we want. Because we are the ones who make it, and we are incredibly unified. I think that in terms of timeline, it's all like this logistics of, they're talking to the directors and that conversation's over in June, and then they're talking to the actors and that conversation's over in whatever. Their contracts expire June 30th. So like there are all these deadlines because again, it's like you think about it emotionally as someone who's like television, and then I also think about it in terms of like how many months of rent are saved up, when are we doing all this other stuff. So the nice thing is we are like, the nice thing about a labor action is we are not bound by our exclusivity, the part of our contracts anymore. So the book I actually got carved out of my contract. They were very cool about it because I had sold it before I got my job. But like some other little stuff that I can do for money that is not with a guild signatory company.
Okay.
I can still go and write professionally if it comes to that.
You could do some stand-up.
I can always do stand-up. I don't know if you know this, but there's quite a threshold before stand-up makes you any money. In fact, it costs money for much longer. At least the kind of stand-up that I do.
Do you have to like make sure that like 15 people show up? Is that a part of it? Like that's the way it used to be, right?
That is a type of show.
Okay.
Called a bringer show. That because I have been like vaguely in the stand-up world. I'm sure that you'll know. It's like when you're first trying to break into this career, I did a little bit of everything. I did the improv, I did the sketch, I did a little bit of stand-up, I did online humor writing, which is how I like got into the book world. So I've dipped my toes into all of this. But I was never like, I'm going to go out and be a stand-up. So I know that there are bringer shows where you bring a lot of people, but it is my impression, I believe, that bringer shows are not, they're a way to get stage time, but
it's like buying followers on Instagram.
Yes.
Right. I want organic. I want my material to be good enough so people want to listen.
Well, and also you're making money for the, like, you're doing kind of the
they're
the
selling
producer's
alcohol,
job for them.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're also paying for stage time, which I think is kind of a bummer in a bringer show.
What's it cost for like 30 minutes of stage time on a?
Well, that's that's the thing is like you don't have to pay for it, but you bring 15 people, and
they
that
pay to
like
get in.
and that's how you pay.
Yeah.
So, but no, it's like, and also like stand up stage time, it's like 5 minutes, 3, 5, 7 minutes.
I just assumed you were good. That's why I said 30 minutes.
Oh no, I am good, but I don't have to pay for my time. I get asked.
Oh wow, okay, this is good. All right, so I've seen a couple statements that you've made about stand up.
Oh sure, like what? I don't even know what statements
Okay.
I made about stand up.
And I don't know if it is. I don't know if you got it from somewhere else or some of your perspective. But you said you played basketball growing up in high school and through your childhood, I'm assuming. So you made an analogy about stand up and baseball. Okay?
Yes.
And that was about. I've talked about it a lot, even in business. Like, hey, you make the Hall of Fame in baseball if you average a 300.
Yes.
Which that means if there's 10 pitches thrown, you hit 3 of them.
Yes.
And so what I know about life is most of us feel like that's massive failure because those 7 hurt really bad.
Right.
Right? So you made the analogy that stand-up's similar.
Yes.
Okay. So speak to this because this is like a business, a growth principle, a success principle. So speak to this.
Yeah. So and I was talking. I think I was talking about comedy in general because obviously I do some stand up, but what I do for my job is write jokes, and there is so much failure in joke writing and in comedy because you are not the arbiter of success completely. You know what I mean? Like I can say, I think this is funny. That's why I wrote it. But if I built my career only on what I think is funny, I mostly think that every joke that I write is funny. That's why I wrote it or submitted it. But not everybody thinks that every joke that I write is funny. Not everybody thinks that every joke anybody writes is funny. And that's what, in any type of writing, in any type of creating, right, you're curating, right? And I mean, like, probably, I'm speaking way outside because like probably in selling houses, you've got 6 that are, that are good that you think would fit with this person based on what you know of them. And in 3 of them, you're wrong. Well, it's like, you only got to sell one house.
Yeah.
And
It's a principle of life.
it is.
It's dating.
Right.
It's friends. It's, I don't know, sometimes family members. It's business. It's playing sports. Especially even in the beginning and the middle part, you're just not going to be that good probably.
Right.
We're not all, I don't know, who's the best comedian?
Oh, wow.
Who is it? Who does?
Well, I think it's so different because there are so many different
Types?
kinds. Yeah. There's people who write their own stuff and like tell their own jokes. There are people who write jokes for other people, and so that's, I mean, what I do is a collaboration, right? Because I write a joke.
Is there a writer's room?
Kind of.
Okay.
Yeah. It's like we write our jokes and then my boss says them. Mm-hmm. And so, I don't get to say them.
Do you ever have it happen? We're not talking about an individual boss.
Sure.
But has it ever happened where you wrote the joke and you're like, that was so much funnier when I wrote it?
I've had it happen with myself.
Yeah.
When I write something and or the reverse, where it's like I wrote something and I'm like, it's fine, like it's fine, but it's a placeholder, and then I go read the piece, and when I read it, when I imbue it with that life, it's so much funnier than just on the page. And then there have been the opposite where I'm like, oh, this structure's really fun, and this is the weird thing about being able to switch mediums. It's like when you write something on a page, you're writing it for someone's eyes. When you're writing it for the screen, you're writing it for someone's ears, but you're also writing it for someone else's mouth. And if you write a joke that does not come out easily, it doesn't matter how funny it is because people are going to be, we're humans. It's like, oh, I'm worried about you because you stumbled. But to the 30% thing, it also depends on how you receive that information and what you want to do with it. If you say 3 out of 10 of my jokes are going to be bad.
Or 7.
Or 7. Or sorry, yes. 3 out of 10 jokes are going to be good. 7 out there. See, I told you. You got to do the math.
That's my
job. You got to do the math.
Yeah.
So 7 out of 10 of my jokes are going to be bad. 3 out of 10 are going to be good. So you can kind of decide, well, I want to make that number 6 out of 10. Or you can say, well, great. Then I'm going to write 500. And then that's 150. That's wrong.
You're right.
Whatever.
30% of 500 is 150.
Is that true?
100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't think that's true.
No, it is true.
30% of
30% of 500 is 150.
Okay, great.
Yeah, so you're right. So, but here, what
I've done so much more math than I
you're good. So, but what happens? Is that what you learn at Harvard? Is that the math you learn at Harvard? I'm just wondering.
Oh, I took the pre-test for math for Harvard.
Didn't go well.
And it's like out of 46 or something, and I think I got a 9. Like.
So the good thing is that, guys, here's the thing. Harvard isn't what we thought it was, okay? I'm sorry. It's just not. Like, I guess it's just they make everyone think you're not going to get in, so you don't apply, so that everyone that applies gets in. That's how it goes, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And if any of you who can do math, we can talk. I let's just say I have other skills. My ego is not hit at all by my inability to do math.
All right, so the question is, what is the Ivy League if you're good at math that you should go to? Because it's not Harvard.
Well, no, it is Harvard.
Oh, bull crap it is.
What? Why?
You got in with 9 out of 46.
Well, I'm not good at math.
Are you that awesome at everything else?
What? Yeah.
Okay.
Clearly.
So what do you do with these jokes then? So, because we'll connect this to, because I think writing is entrepreneurial.
Oh, 100%.
You got to problem solve. You have to take, like, are you thinking about who's the audience? Who's my boss, the comedian that's delivering? Are you thinking about all that?
At a certain point, yes. And I think so much of navigating what I'm doing at any given point or what I'm writing is deciding what I'm paying attention to in that moment. So if I'm writing, for instance, like an entry for this book, which is like the Guide to Midwestern Conversation, it's very like introduce a thing, translate it in a funny way, but it's very kind of warm and related and like fun, and I want people to like it, and I want people from the Midwest to feel
good about who we are.
Feel good about who we are, but also like seen truly. Not like I'm pandering, but also not like I'm coddling. And so in that case, the first thing I want to say is like, is it true? And then is it true? Is it funny? And then I'll look through it and say, is there anything in here that would distract from the truth or the funniness?
Is that controversial?
Controversial, sure, but also maybe like is it too wordy, right? Is it true, but like the sentence goes on for too long? Is it a big block of text that people might want to skip over? Like, yeah, sure, there's some controversial stuff. It's like, oh, if I say that this song is better than this song, like what specific would I use to make it true? Like, yes, but there are also like plenty of other ways that are distracting. Something else that's distracting is, did I use this same descriptive word in the sentence above? That's distracting, right? So, but if I'm writing every single thing initially first draft, not wanting it to be distracting, wanting it to be true, wanting it to be funny, want everyone to love it, it'll take me 10 hours or I'll get scared and cry and go into the fetal position and be like, I can't do it. So it depends on the stage. And then you get feedback and you can adjust to that feedback depending on what you're doing. If I write a sketch or a script and I, show it to my husband and he's like, well, I didn't understand this part. Or like a lot of times what is great in comedy is you're like, yes, I saw this coming. Or like, I've heard this before, right? Because we want it to be new. We want it to be different. So it's like you think about all of it. I think the big question is when, at what part of the process are you thinking about what and who?
How do you figure that out? Like, did when you came out of Harvard, did you have these traditional time frames like 18 or 19, you go to Harvard, graduate 22, 23 or no? Like age?
Oh, like was I those ages?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So did Harvard prepare you? Like, be honest about this. Don't just like represent the, what is it? What's the proper color?
What? Oh, it is crimson.
Okay. I just want to make
One of my first jokes ever was all the Ivy League schools were having a mascot conversation, and Princeton was like, we'll be the tiger, and Yale was like, we'll be the bulldogs, and Harvard was like, we're gonna be red, but not just red, like pretentious red.
Does that apply?
I mean, like no, everybody's an asshole everywhere, but like also everybody's awesome and super smart everywhere. So it's like, so did Harvard prepare me for? I mean, Harvard prepared me for a lot of things, in a lot of different ways. I think.
Are you being paid for this?
Absolutely not.
Okay,
and I haven't given them a drop of money
since,
and they haven't. I mean,
ever?
What? No, I gave them a lot of money up front.
I was just figuring out like what level of intelligence was this?
Oh, no.
Were you like one of the three, or what was this? Huh?
Oh, well, they don't do that. They don't give
anything. All that money they have, and they don't get anything.
They give it if you need it.
Okay.
But they don't do like, you're the smartest, bestest. Have some money.
Not at all. Like, we're all supposed to be that smart here.
Yeah. That's the premise.
Yeah. So what did prepare you for it? 23, you come out. 'Cause there's this big debate around higher education now.
Yeah.
Did it prepare you to be this writer? And if it didn't, be honest.
I think that it was really helpful for me as an individual. Growing up in high school and everything, I was really, really competitive. And there was this feeling of wanting to be the best. And it was great for me at Harvard because I was never going to be the best at anything. So I found out what made me happy, what I was good at, what I enjoy. Like, I don't know, and this is a referendum on my 18-year-old self, but I don't know if at a lot of other schools I wouldn't have been really obsessed with, being the best at everything. And it was just so, and it's not to say that at other schools I would have been able to do that. I wouldn't have, but it would have because of my upbringing and what, the school's pedigree. It would have felt, I think, more possible. And so in that way, the environment, that environment was really productive. I think it was really, really self-driven. All of our like student theater productions, everything, like I was a producer, I was an assistant stage manager. There was not like teacher or faculty. Like I was someone who was very close with all my teachers in high school. If you don't get that entire vibe from everything that I am. And in college, that was not what happened. It was totally self-driven, and I did not do that as much as I maybe could have.
Was the environment forced discipline?
Elaborate on that.
So if there's no one holding your hand, and there's this not pre-programmed thing that you're going to do this and do this and do this, you're forced to be disciplined and create some discipline around like an approach, what I'm going to do, hold myself accountable. Was it that type of environment?
No one was going to help you. Yep. The expectation was very much, now there were places, there was trust, I think, in a way that some other schools don't have trust. I got really sick and had to get a couple of like special dispensations, and they were very, very flexible about that. But I had to go and ask. I had to go and I had to, and I had to do this. I mean, I had to have the doctor's notes and everything, but there was the expectation that, you better have it together, because
if not, you better get it together.
Right. Because, and this is true what they say. It's like, there are a lot of professors that had, office hours and everything, but they were not seeking you out. Like, you really had to go, and a lot of them were great. And again, I didn't know how to operate in that environment. And
what made you figure it out?
I kind of didn't. I kind of did what I wanted to do, and had a couple of rejections that were, I got fine grades. I think I went in not knowing that I could really structure the life and the academic education that I wanted, and so I did a couple things that I felt like I should at first. Like I took economics, and I was really bad at it. I wasn't even really bad at it.
You weren't interested.
I wasn't interested, and also I had gone to the same school for 12 years, and I did not know what it was like to want to hang out with your friends instead of do school, because I liked all my friends, but I'd known them since I was 6, and so,
What type of school was this?
it was an independent private in Missouri. So it was like graduating class of 45, go through school, basketball practice, rehearsal, get home at 10 p.m. at night. Didn't do homework during the week. You do it in the morning or you do it on the weekend in really big blocks. Like, I definitely had self-discipline at school, but my social life was baked into my school.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't know how to make friends. I didn't know how to, like, I'm a personable person. Like, I made friends. I just didn't, I was like, oh, but I could hang out with you, or I could do work, or I could, or I want to be doing this and I want to be doing this. The other thing that I think is very interesting that I'm still working with is that I would put off the work I was most excited about doing until the end. But what that ended up meaning was that I shortchanged myself in the areas that I actually wanted to pursue with the rest of my life.
Because was your brain programmed to do the hard stuff first?
Mm-hmm.
And you don't think that's good?
I did not have an accurate assessment of what mattered. Because when I was doing my education, like, I knew I didn't want to go to grad school. So what's the best thing I can do in this environment? Read my texts, write my plays and my papers, and get myself to a level doing those. And the rest of this stuff, which I don't like as much, not necessarily harder, I just didn't like it as much. That's just a grade. And it's good that I learn about it and everything like that. But if I don't actually have equal resources to give to everything, the idea that I should put most of my energy into the things that I'm least interested in when they are also less valuable, I think that's the thing. Is in high school they were all equally valuable because you got to get the grade and whatever. In college it's different. It's like, it's going to be better actually if I spend 2 more hours on this play and phone in this, paper for a class about Einstein or whatever the hell.
For the record, that would have been cool. The paper on Einstein.
It was fine. It was like, again, I did. I spent more time on this and less time on the play. But because I think that doing the hard, necessary stuff first is definitely important. But I'm already wired that way.
But I'm going to make an analogy here. Yeah. So you're saying go all in on your strengths?
Yes.
Because that's a part of the thing of what you want to be doing, right?
Right.
Okay.
And
there's big debates around this. Do you focus on what some of your weaknesses to level up everything, or go all in on your strengths? And there's a debate around that.
And I think you have to see what the ratio is going to be.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you can't just not do your laundry
unless there's someone else doing it for you.
Well, exactly. But that's the thing, right? So then we get into it. Okay, so what's an hour of your time worth? Right? If we say an hour of my idle thinking time is worth, $50 an hour, then no question somebody else is doing my laundry for me. But if that $50 goes, I know I'm preaching to the choir here on this.
Yeah. But what do you think then, when you were in that second, third year, it probably started slowing down a little bit, where you became more comfortable. You saw the first year was just crazy, I bet.
Yes.
Right? So did you have an idea what you were going to be doing your sophomore, junior, and senior year in college? And is that what you're doing now?
So,
come on now.
I think so. Okay. And the answer is yes. Right? Like, if you had said, okay, you're a 20-year-old in college and you'd given me a list of a bunch of things to pick from, 30 years old with a book, a TV job.
Yeah, the 30-year-old Taylor. That's what she's going to be doing.
Yeah. It's like, you've got a book, you've got a TV job, I would say, yeah, great. I would love that. I think that
was it the hope and dream stuff?
The hope and dream stuff?
The life you're living now at 30, was it the hopes and dreams of the 20, 21, 22-year-old?
Oh, 100%. 100%. I think that it was definitely one of them. And I say it definitely one of them because and this is what's strange, and this is what I have such a weird time kind of going back and thinking about, because if I definitely wanted to write comedy for TV, period, the end, that's what I wanted to do, I would have joined the Lampoon. Because that's the thing at Harvard that that's the thing that everybody knows. If you want to do comedy for TV, you join the Lampoon. And I did not do that for a variety of reasons. People will notice it's a similarity many women in comedy who came out of Harvard share, that we did not join the Lampoon.
For reasons that I would not know, being a Midwestern Southern guy.
Yeah, for reasons that I think people don't talk about, because they are still kind of they're still there. They're still kind of powerful in the world of TV, even though, like, you know. But that was something that at a certain point I decided I didn't want to do. And the other thing is that, and this is very interesting, I'm interested in what you think about this, is I did a lot of musical theater in college because I knew that I was not good enough in musical theater to do it professionally. And so I was like, this is the time of my life where I'm going to be able to do this at a high level, do something that I love. Because if I want to operate at the highest level, it's not going to be, like, I'm not going to go to New York and do a lot of singing auditions. I did a couple to say that I'd done it, but I got the response that I expected, which was, thank you so much.
Was that like, we think you're great, we appreciate you coming and participating?
Yeah, that was like, thank you for coming in to this. I mean, it was like a huge mass cattle call, whatever. And
so what part of that are you interested in my opinion?
Oh no, I think that it's, you know, there are elements of finite, like that was a life experience that I wanted. That wasn't specifically in pursuit of a goal. That was in pursuit of a life.
Here's what I believe. I think we should always be doing that. But unfortunately, the lives that we create and the holes that we pin ourselves down in, they create this thought process that think like, well, those options are over.
Mm-hmm.
Can't do that anymore. I have these other responsibilities.
Yes.
Right? So unfortunately, I don't think that's just something the 20-year-old Harvard attendee should be doing.
Yeah.
I think it's something the 30-year-old Taylor should be doing.
Well, and that is something that I am not a really big austerity measures person. I work really hard, but I do not, I am not always thinking of my future self. I am not delaying all gratification. And I don't know, and this is what's fascinating about, like, being a person. I don't know if that is a natural occurring thing in who I am, or because I've been very sick twice. I don't know if that's a way that I would feel if I hadn't had these life experiences. But I know now that, like, you know, well, yeah, of course I'm going to put money in my retirement account, but I'm also going to act like I'm never going to use that retirement account. So it's a dance. It is. It's like, how much of the hard stuff do we do? But I don't think we should ever be doing the hard stuff just because it's hard. Hard in itself is not a value. It's directing us towards something. And if it's also hard, well, then great, we can do hard things. But hard does not make something inherently good.
What does make something inherently good?
I don't know. I think it depends on the person.
What makes something inherently good for you?
It depends on where I'm at.
Like, let's talk about a guide to the Midwestern Conversation. We'll
This is
talk
my
about
book.
that. So here, the question is that was this hard?
No.
Why not?
So, well, there were parts of it that were very hard, but in terms of you know, setting aside time, creating the environment like we talked about before, that was difficult. But the book itself was really, I mean, it is a classic cliche. It was really a write what you know. The piece itself was one of the piece that was published in McSweeney's that later became the whole book, came out of me one of the most free-flowing, easy pieces I'd ever written. Now, again, it's the analogy I use to keep it with sports is like, it's kind of like saying, wow, this basketball is really light after you've been throwing a medicine ball back and forth with someone for a long time. It's like, it's lighter because I'm stronger. Because it took me 6-7 years or whatever of writing, of doing this process. But no, the book itself was, I mean, it took a long time. It took discipline. It took routine. And, there's a vulnerability.
Why is there a vulnerability around it? So you grew up in Kansas City.
I did.
Right. And so officially, Nebraska and Kansas and Missouri are, for some reason, officially considered Midwest. Did you create that, or did you find that somewhere that these states are officially the Midwest?
3 different places. I did Encyclopedia Britannica, the U.S. Census, and then I asked some dads.
Oh, you did?
No, so I made sure that there was a third party.
Is that like the verification process that's needed?
Yes.
Okay, good.
That's what I did so that nobody could yell at me.
Yeah, well, I'm going to yell at you. And so, I'm sorry, I'm just going to. That's who I am. I'm just wondering how today, physically, we're actually in the state of Kentucky. But if we pulled the curtains back on the studio and we looked out these windows, we're looking at the Ohio River.
Right.
And we're looking at downtown Cincinnati. But just because I'm right over the other side of the river, I'm not in the Midwest. How's that okay?
It's true.
I know it's true, but how's it okay? Don't placate. This is about understanding. I understand.
First of all, the Midwest is for everyone.
Here we go.
And you know that.
Okay.
Here's what I will say, and this is an answer that I have developed over the course of people getting frosty with me.
Been out of shape.
Been out of shape. And it might not be satisfying, but if you went to a person on the coasts and said, I am from Kentucky, do you think they would treat you the same? Do you think that they would have the same response to where you are from as they would someone from Iowa, Indiana, etc.?
Well, make the comparison to Ohio.
Sure.
Because it's right.
Yeah, exactly. Ohio. I was actually having a conversation
earlier
with it. Yeah.
So how would you treat me or think about me if you met me and we were on the coast somewhere and and because I don't have any accent. And so I'm just like, I'm from Kentucky.
Well, so I know because I wrote this book and I've also been to Cincinnati.
Mm-hmm. Which is an awesome city.
That I would ask more questions. But that's the thing is I'm from the Midwest. I would ask more questions.
Okay.
And I know the Cincinnati airport's in Kentucky.
It's funny.
So, right? It's funny. The other thing that is very funny to me, and this is just like a slight tangent, but my bird brain, it's just so funny what we like. As I was driving here today, I was like, wow, I was just in Ohio and now I'm in Kentucky. 2 states in one day. That's weird. Man, I get my coffee in Kansas when I'm at home. Like, the idea that I'm in 2 states in a day, every single day, it just feels different when it's 2 other states. I was with my dad once and we went from New Hampshire to Vermont. And I was like, that's crazy that we had dinner in New Hampshire and now we're going to sleep in Vermont. And he just looked at me like, dude, I don't know what to tell you.
You're
like,
weird. You're weird,
you
right?
do that,
Yeah.
like you personally do that all the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think because the biggest place I've had this conversation is with people from Western Pennsylvania who also really want to claim Midwestern cred.
Yeah.
And what I've said is I think that Pennsylvania, when spoken about to other places,
Northeast,
is treated with more like cultural legitimacy than places in the Midwest.
Well, you better talk about what that is then, because we like to have some cultural legitimacy.
This is not me.
No, I know that.
Yeah.
But this is really good because here's what I think. So this Midwestern Conversation, a guide to it. Like I'm even looking at the front of the book. I'm like, corn. Yep, we grew it. That glass, it's not Tupperware, but it's a glass dish that we had those.
Yeah.
I remember having them with that little. So what does this, a guide to Midwestern Conversation, because when I looked at the digital version of it, I'm like, yeah. I identify with a lot of those things.
Yeah.
So what is it when you said that we don't have like a big culture identity, but maybe Pennsylvania does? What is that?
Well, I think we have a cultural identity,
Okay.
but I think that it's holistic. Like, I don't think that people who don't know the Midwest, and I don't think that this is a good thing, I should say. But like, I think if you say Indiana or Illinois, but not Chicago, or Missouri or Minnesota to people on the coast who have never been like to those places or curious about those places, it operates as a monolith. And I think if you say Pennsylvania, people don't equate the people like, oh, you have coast, you've got Philadelphia, you have, the cheesesteaks and the Eagles and,
What do you think the Midwest is? Because it's special to you. You wouldn't have written this
It
book
is,
if it
it
wasn't
is.
special. Yeah. So I'm going to include myself, but what are we? What are we?
Well, I think that we are so many different things, but I think what we are bonded to one another, I think, in a world of communication that is, it's that we speak a language that we understand, and other people misunderstand that language. Other people think that we are being passive aggressive, or that we are lying. And that is not true to me. I think that we are, the phrase I use in the book is, it's not a euphemism any more than bonjour is a French euphemism for hello. It's not, we're not saying this instead of saying something else. This is how we say it. So like, if I say to you, that guy's a character, right? I'm telling you, he's batshit. If I say to you, our kids go to the same school, or our kids are friends, right? I'm telling you that I don't like that person, that we are only operating in the same circles because of the proximity of our children. There are different ways to say, it's like, oh, our kids met in school and we really hit it off. Like, there are other ways to say, I like this person. But what you're saying when you say our kids are friends is, don't associate me with this person.
Did this happen to you, this realization, when you went to Harvard and then you lived in New York City?
Yes.
And
I could not have written this book
Yep.
if I still lived in the Midwest.
Culturally, you're like, what is going on?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that, I am now split between the worlds, right? Like, there are some things that I do that are way New York,
Which are?
I don't know, the pace that I move,
Fast.
like very, very fast. Something that I've said is, I think the reason I talk so much is I have the Midwestern inclination to make conversation, but the New York speed. So I try to get all of the Midwestern things in, but in half the time. And that's why I talk so fast. And just being a little bit more upfront.
That's a tough thing for those in the Midwest to be able to handle.
I think so.
Yeah, there's directness, and I don't know why. It feels like it does apply in the Northeast, in some of the big cities. I don't know if it's because of time. I don't know if it's because I'm not going to waste. Whatever it is, I find myself being more direct than the average person because I just want to get to it.
Right.
Right? And I don't know if the Midwest wants to sit out back on the deck in the chair, have a conversation first. I just want to make sure we can get along, and hey, I don't know what that is, but I don't want to take time for the bullshit.
Right. Well, and I don't think it's always bullshit. I think that it is a prioritization of, it depends on what you're prioritizing in the interaction. Right? Whereas, like, if we're in the Midwest and we're out on the porch, right? I don't think it's unfair to say we're going to prioritize everyone having a good time. We want everyone to be at their, like, baseline most comfortable. And so because of that, I'm not going to be as direct. I'm going to make some ways around. I'm going to see how comfortable we are with one another, because we've agreed that, it's a Saturday, there's brats on the grill, the game's on in 2 hours. Like, we all want to have the best time possible. And there are other times where it's like, I want to get to, like, I want to have a real conversation about what's going on, or something's in my mind and I know you and I want to know what you think about it. And then we bypass some of the pleasantries. We care less about making sure that in the moment everybody is comfortable.
So which one's better?
I don't think either one's better.
I knew that was going to be your answer.
And it's not, it's like, I'm not bullshitting. It's like, if I walked outside and you showed me a pot of steaming baked beans and a cup of ice cream and said, which one's better? I'd be like, well, it's 85 degrees. The ice cream is better right now, but like loop back again and on Thanksgiving,
So we're saying they're both. So you would say that both ways are good and okay.
Yeah.
Which one do you favor?
Well, I mean, it depends on what we're doing, right? I do think that is a tenet of Midwesternism, that I do think Midwesterners are like, go into a place and are like, what are the rules here? Because we are not the monolith that other people are necessarily. So we come in and it's like, do we take our shoes off in this house? Are we like, is this a place where,
are we having an alcoholic?
I was
going to
say, is this a place where we're drinking?
Yep.
And or like, is this a place where, like, my dad doesn't drink, he drinks Diet Pepsi, but if we're going to a place in the Midwest, we're going to a place that doesn't know that, he'll bring his own. If we're going to a place that does know that, they know to have Diet Pepsi for my dad.
Here's my understanding of what you just said. This is just it, if that's the way it is. We kind of care about respecting other people, their feelings, whatever we consider the norms, a little bit more than ourselves.
Yes. I don't think we have a, with like, and again, there are obvious impenetrable exceptions, right? Where it's like, and this is kind of where we get into the Midwestern, like, when does Midwestern overtake? It's like, obviously, if you have a food allergy, right, you can't out-polite a food allergy. Now, some Midwesterners try, and they go hungry for a very long time.
You try to bring something that someone else is going to like, though.
Exactly.
Happens all the time.
And it's the curiosity, right? Like, it's the okay, what do they do over here? How do I fit into that? And I do think that is.
Is it the slower pace of life that allows us to do that? Are we taking the time? Is it something culturally? Because there's something about cultures. You go to any city, and I think that San Diego is going to be different than Dallas. Mm-hmm. It's going to be different than Miami. It's going to be different than New York City. There are cultures that happen in these cities, and then probably bigger regionally, Northeast, Midwest. It doesn't mean that's an exact rule everywhere.
Right.
But is this a thing where the pace of life on the norm is a little bit more relaxed, laid back, maybe family-based, these traditional things, and we're thinking about others a little bit more?
Yeah. I think it's and also the way that we think about others isn't
always awesome, but yeah. I'm sitting here thinking about it, right?
Yeah. Well, and I have had a couple of conversations where people talk about, the big thing they talk about is making conversation on public transportation in New York. So many Midwesterners have been like, and I'll try to talk to people, and they won't talk to me. And someone else, I did not say this, but I wholeheartedly endorse it. Someone was like, well, actually, in New York, it's kind of rude to talk to someone on public transportation, because for a lot of people, that's their alone time, right? We don't get our alone times in our cars. We don't really even get our alone times in our apartments, depending on how loud the toddler next door is. And so it is a different rule. And so it's whereas it might seem like, oh, well, New Yorkers aren't thinking about anyone but themselves. It's like, no, but their default is to say, I am existing in my world. New Yorkers will help you find directions if you ask them.
You've had this discussion about, in big cities, especially New York City, that it's kind of like not okay to try to start up some random conversation on public transportation.
Right.
It's rude.
Yeah. It's the default would be, I think, like, for the most part, assume that would not be super welcome. Now, obviously there are exceptions, and like I think that most people can tell when
Can read a
people are
situation.
open for conversation or not. You know, it's like if I see people wearing KC stuff. I mean, it's also funny because like KC got good at sports like while I was there.
Kind of.
Right? I know, but it's bananas.
Kind of.
I know where I am. I know where I am. But it is like it used to be, you know, I'll run outside with my Chiefs ever. I'll be going for a run and, you know, people will be trying to talk to me. And, you know, when you're like a woman in your late 20s running through New York, you're like, oh, why is this person talking to me? And they're just like giving
hey,
me a thumbs up.
Keep going. Great job.
Yeah,
good to see you. Yeah.
Exactly. Which is very fun. But, you know, you can tell when people are open to conversation or when they aren't. And like, you know, of course, when Midwesterners are on the train and they need help and then, you know, they recognize very clearly that I am not a New Yorker. Mm-hmm. Like we chat, and that is something that nourishes me. But yes, it is. It's a different
culturally these areas, right? It's
yeah.
just we're just different. So, what do you love? What caused you to write this? A guide to Midwestern conversation.
So there are a couple of things. One of the big ones, actually, when I was doing the proposal, I was like, and I want to have a profile of every state, of every Midwestern state. And it's one of the few, most of this book was motivated by love. That was motivated slightly by spite, because so many times I have gone into bookstores or, you know, seen books that purport to be about things in the United States of America, right? Like restaurants in all 50 states, or like a food tour through the United States, or like big best attractions or whatever. And I so hungrily would go to these books and I would look for, you know, what do they say about Missouri? Because I know that I know the career I've chosen. I know that I'm never going to live there again, but it is still my home. And I go and I see like, what is the news from home? I feel like, you know, a Civil War soldier or whatever. What news of the other world? And I would go through, and so often they would be like, here's one freaking drive-in in Nebraska, and that's the whole Midwest. Or like...
And you're like, bullshit.
Exactly. Or like, oh, we decided that there are, you know, these 2 barbecue places in Kansas, and we're not doing Missouri. Obviously, that would never happen. I would truly start a fire.
Like if you're never going to live back there again, why do you need to defend it so much?
What? I'm not defending it. I'm loving it. Also, of course, what do you mean, why do you need to defend it so much?
So here's the good thing is, because I think that like when I looked at the digital version, I was like, this is somebody that really cares.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
so I think the love, what you're saying, the love piece that's accurate. I feel that.
Yeah, and one of the more frustrating things, I think, the more frustrating false impressions about people like me, is that there is the fact that I will never go back. That was 100% easy. That there is no sacrifice inherent in that. Well, of course, you want to be in entertainment, you go to New York. The end. Missouri's in the frickin' dust. Like, no. I miss parts of it. There are parts of a life in the Midwest. There are parts of this that I have given up to do what I love. It is not, I don't believe that I have moved from somewhere inferior to somewhere superior. I believe that I have moved from a place where I grew up to a place that will foster and facilitate the life and career that I want to have. And I have placed my priorities in a place that geographically requires, and other parts of my life that I like. I like the fast pace, you know, there are parts that I like, but that doesn't, I couldn't, it's not that I couldn't wait to leave and never come back. And I think that's something that I hope that this book conveys. And I have heard from, you know, Midwesterners in other places, or people who know Midwesterners that live no longer in the Midwest, that like, you know, it feels nice to feel like you are still a part of a place that you aren't anymore, because that want and that kind of nostalgia and that kind of missing of home is not something that we often get assigned.
Me talking to you and meeting you, you're more Midwest than you are New York.
Oh Oh yeah, I mean, yeah. But I'm more
It's not
New
a bad
York
thing
than
at
a
all.
lot Midwestern.
Yeah, no, but I would say that's not a bad. You know what I think, and what I said that was I've traveled quite a bit, and I think inherently we're all probably homers a little bit. We probably are. We think our place is better. Our place is special. It's because that's like what we remember. It's the feelings. It's our people. But every time I would come back here, Northern Kentucky, Cincinnati, Southeastern Indiana, people were just nice. Okay? I think there's something. I don't care about the chivalry conversation. If that's about how you treat everyone, that's fine. But I think actually holding the door for someone, man or woman, it feels good. And the reason why I know it feels good, I know what it feels good for somebody to let the door go in your face.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel good wherever you are.
Right.
Right? I know that when you get in an elevator and someone's already in there, inherently you put your head down, you pull out your phone, you don't create a lot of conversation. That's that feeling that happens around the world. It seems to be a little different here. And when I mean here, it's not just one state. There's something about this Midwestern combined with, I don't know if any of it's Southern. I don't know. But I know it is important for us, and not just me, people I'm around. It's important for us to treat other people well. And I don't always feel that when I go places. And I'm not a negative or pessimistic person. There's just something that's been ingrained about the way you're supposed to treat people. It seems like here, it still matters. And I don't know if it doesn't matter anywhere else. It just doesn't feel like it's an important part. So that's how I see this without even reading the book about this Midwestern conversation. It's probably going to let people give them some insight.
Yeah, and I think that there's I think that there is a way that we receive care and like what we expect as caring from other people that is very specific. I think that there are ways in New York that I feel like people are deeply kind that I think people from other places in the world would not interpret as kindness. And
for example,
like there are like being quiet on the subway, or like little eye contact about something that we're not going to talk about it, but we'll just kind of look at each other. I think that there are times I feel like New Yorkers that I've been around are really, really wonderful at assessing when I am upset subcategory want to talk or upset category want to be left alone.
Is that street smarts?
I don't know. Or maybe I just have two very distinct faces when it maybe it's
when you're not
thing.
happy, when it's
right.
like hey, we'd pick up on it too,
Exactly.
Yeah, because you've been there for 9 years.
Yes.
Right. And then you spent 4 years in Boston.
Right.
So
I spent 4 years on campus. I did not go into Boston as much as I should have.
For the record, last time I was in Boston, I did go to the Harvard campus, and it felt like Boston to me, even though I had the big dig under the tunnel and out to wherever. It felt like it's only 20 minutes away, right?
Yeah, it's really not that bad. I
didn't
go into the city as much. In fact, my husband went to Boston University for grad school, and we went back, and he would talk to me like I had been to Boston. He was like, "Oh, we'll go to this place." I was like, I'm very embarrassed to say I do not know what you're talking about.
And his jaw probably dropped like,
right.
What are you talking about?
He was like, what? And he rolled his eyes at me, but
because Boston's not a big city.
It's not. It's very well, and he's from Bogota, Colombia, which is a huge city, and then we live in New York, which is a huge city. And so to me, Boston was a nice
Boston's smaller from a geographical perspective, I see it, than a KC.
Oh yeah.
Than a Cincinnati.
Well, and Kansas City right when I left, and Kansas City is booming now. Mm-hmm. We're gonna have the World Cup. We had the draft this year. We're good at football for the foreseeable future, which is very cool.
Maybe.
But I'm just saying, so
it's different. It's there's things happening. There's an energy around the city,
and it's becoming and also, what you need from a city, how you experience a city when you're young is very different than when you're a young adult. you know, we've also got like a very cool like brewery and cocktail culture, which obviously I did not experience. And along with that comes a little bit more public transport. You know what I mean? Like a little bit more allowing.
So maybe you need to become such a great, successful author, which means just because you sell a lot of books doesn't mean you're a great author. However, I don't think anybody's calling Malcolm Gladwell a bad author. Okay?
Right, exactly.
I just don't think that's happening.
You can call them. You can be a successful author. This is not about Malcolm Gladwell.
Yes.
I realize you can be a successful author without being a good writer.
Yes, and so I just think
I think he's a good writer.
yeah,
But
those like Tipping Point and 10,000 Hours.
Yeah.
There's some good stuff there.
Yeah.
And so isn't that funny too? I believe one of his parents was from Jamaica. I think
so.
And then I think one's American, one Jamaican, I think. And it's like, you know what, guys, no matter where you're from, like you can come do great things in the world, but become such a successful author that's the way that you financially support yourself and have a great life, that you can move back to Kansas City.
Well,
because you might. You said you never will. You may.
I don't know, man. I mean,
may.
It's certainly possible. But there is a pace.
Your husband might not be okay with that either.
Well, I mean, he likes it. But I like there is a pace of life right now that I feel more New York. Also, I have never owned a car in my life,
and you'd have
which
to,
is,
Casey.
and I'd have to if I get a job in LA, I'll have to, you know what I mean? Like I'm gonna eventually buy a car, but yeah, it's really, I mean, and Kansas City has been, well, the entire Midwest. That's the other thing about the book is I could write a whole other book about the Midwest's reaction to the book.
What is that?
Which, like, I mean, Kansas City is its own ecosystem. I mean, they set me up an event. The mayor came. Like, there's a guy who, there's a guy who runs a group of sort of makers fairs called Made in KC, and like we're buds now. Like, it just, somebody found out, and then I was on the news the next day, and then somebody watched the news, and then I was on a radio show. Like, it was this whole ecosystem that sprung up.
See, I'm on to something here.
No, I'm telling you.
I'm on to something.
But they, but then, I was on the news in Chicago, and like, y'all here in Cincinnati/Kentucky.
You can say Cincinnati. You have to say it because nobody else knows. What's what sucks? If you say Northern Kentucky, you don't know. They don't know that we're inside the loop. That the airport's here.
Right.
No one outside of this area understands the context.
So
of this.
Is this Cincinnati?
No.
That we're in? No, it's not.
We're literally in the state of Kentucky.
Right.
But if you go out on this terrace out here outside my office,
yes,
we're sitting on top of the city.
I saw it. It's gorgeous.
It's incredible. And so like if we got in my car, I would get there quicker than an Uber. But if we get in my car, I am crossing the Ohio River in 4.5 minutes.
Right.
And so, but we're inside the loop. So these traditional Midwest loops, we're inside it.
Yeah.
So it's just weird. I don't think it's any different than KC. It's not any different than Minneapolis, St. Paul. It just happens that this river. So we are the true, even though we're Kentucky, we're the south side of the city.
Right. Well, I mean,
Right.
Kansas City is mostly in Missouri.
See, that's wild.
And the part of Kansas that is across State Line Road from Kansas City, Missouri, a large part of it is not Kansas City, Kansas.
Yep.
Kansas City, Kansas is further north. So it is. It's this
weird.
It's a weird thing that like people don't know.
So we're at 2.2 million MSA.
Yeah, and I think KC is 1.5. I think.
So it is a legitimate. So if you would take us, any 2 million citizen city, we're a part of the city.
Right.
But we have this Kentucky spirit about us. It's so stupid.
But
I mean, it's crazy though. I know,
but
but
it's
it's
cool.
But it's wild. It's wild. It's like, hey guys, are we going to go across the river tonight? So I think what other, you're talking about the response to the book,
Yeah.
the Midwestern response. Have you been to a lot of these Midwestern cities? Have you? Like you've been to Chicago?
So I went actually on a little tour, a personal road trip while I was writing the book because it felt really yucky to write a book about the Midwest in a Harlem apartment.
Yep.
And also because I had been I had been married like for like a year, and I was like, I still like my husband a whole lot, and we're in the house together all the time because we're both working from home. I was like, I must leave or I will just hang out with him the whole time. I still feel that way. But so I went I went through Des Moines, and unfortunately Cincinnati got the short shrift because it was toward the end of my trip, and I had booked myself intentionally, like with points, like a bigger, nicer room at the downtown Westin for the last 4 of the last 6 days of the trip, because I was like, if I haven't gotten as much done as I wanted, I need to be able to lock myself in a room and not leave. And unfortunately, that is mostly what happened, is I did not get to see a lot of Cincinnati. I did get to go, my friends' folks live here, so I did get a bunch done, and then got to go to a house in the Cincinnati suburbs with babies everywhere. Like, it was like a big family reunion. I was like, oh yes, this is exactly what.
This is the Midwest.
Exactly.
Midwest.
So I went through Des Moines. I went to Madison and Milwaukee. I went to Cedar Rapids. And then I came back through Ann Arbor and Detroit. And then I think and then a little baby trip in Cleveland,
Okay.
then to Cincinnati.
Okay.
And then Indianapolis for, again, like a hot
Quick,
second.
yeah.
And then I was like, I gotta get home. I was working on I also got invited at the same time to do, I didn't have my job then. And the way that you get late night jobs is a thing called packets.
Okay.
So they like send you what they want you to write, and then you have a deadline. So I got a packet like the 3rd or 4th day that I was in Cincinnati. So I went to Indianapolis, and I was like, okay, well, I might as well write the packet at home in Kansas City the last 2 days of my trip. So then I got home. So I got some of Cincinnati, but not as much. But I'm here for another 2 days.
There you go. So you're hanging out. It's going to be awesome.
Hanging
So did you notice anything different from the smaller towns? So you said Des Moines, and
Yeah.
Is there a different Midwest in the smaller towns?
Oh, yes. I think it's much more, it is smaller. It is more familial. I met a bookstore owner in Cedar Rapids, and I like walked into the bookstore, and I was talking to him a little bit. He told me this wonderful story. I mean, it was a terrible story, but with like a wonderful heart value thing. Cedar Rapids has had a lot of flooding recently.
They do.
Yeah.
That river, yeah.
And there was 2 or 3 years before, I think there had been like, this is going to be a really big one. This is going to be really bad. And people kind of wordlessly just showed up to the bookstore and started loading books onto cars.
To save them.
And then they took out the thing. So he was great. And then another woman walked in, and he introduced her to me. And then they both knew this journalist who I also followed on Twitter. And I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, she's great. And she's like, oh, let me call her, and she called her right then, and she was walking the dog, but, give her my number. And now, and like now we have a relationship. And so that was the kind of pace there. Also in Des Moines, I went to a store called Ray Gun, which now has more, I think, stores across
Iowa,
the
Nebraska,
city.
or something.
Yeah.
Okay.
They just they're a t-shirt. Like, he started out at just like printing t-shirts. The guy's name is Mike. He's wonderful. Actually, you probably really like him. And he was just like, yeah, I print t-shirts. And now he prints t-shirts, and they've got all sorts of like funny, it's like very Midwestern, very heartfelt. They've got these sayings, and he turns them around super fast. So like when I'm gonna
Look
forget.
at Dave writing down notes. Look at the producer behind the scenes writing down notes.
You got it right.
The periphery works well here. Yeah. So it felt.
They just emailed me today, literally today, and we're like, hey, your book's doing really well. Like, this.
So is it all the places? Like, is this even an Audible level book? Is it on Audible? You can buy it on Amazon, but
you can buy it on Audible. You can hear
Is
if
it you?
you've liked
Is it
what you've
you?
heard today. It is me.
Kudos to you for doing that.
Thank you so much.
What was that tough? Allowing the publisher to allow you to do it?
No, I asked my agent before we even sold it.
Okay.
I was like, I would like to do the audiobook.
Okay. Was there any pushback on that at all?
Why? Do you think my voice sucks?
No, I think what I'm saying is there's too many people that write the books that don't do the audio. And it seems like, from people that I talk to, we've talked to a lot of people who write really good books, and they get a lot of pushback, and they say, no, we need a professional to do it.
So will say that I have done professional voiceover work, so it like
so it fit.
I mean, I don't know if there was pushback. My agent is very good at what she does, but I would believe it. My mom wrote wrote 2 books, and her most recent one is called Start More Than You Can Finish, and she also wanted auditioned to do the audiobook.
So she had Odyssey.
Yeah, and did
she?
I don't think she. And I auditioned to do her audiobook, and
they
they
didn't
said
let you
no.
do it either.
No, because they didn't want because I sound really young. I'm so young.
I don't think you sound young.
Yeah.
I think you sound 30.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I think.
Yeah.
That's,
I think they wanted somebody a little bit older. But no. So I can't really speak because I do think I have a little bit more training in this than most people do. But yeah, it was something that I was really glad to be able to do. It was very cool. I went to, you go to the cool studio, they give you the water and the snacks and the honey, and you're just like.
How long did it take?
8 hours.
8 hours.
It was just it was like a 9 to 5 day.
What did you feel like when you finished?
I cried. Yeah. I cried writing the last bit, and then there was an extra last bit, and I cried writing that, and then I cried writing the acknowledgments. But the time I cried in the audiobook, I think you can kind of hear my voice catch reading through the acknowledgments. And then I don't know if you know that I'm crying, but I think you can hear me trying really hard to control my voice when I read the kind of like Midwestern goodbye, thank you for being with me. Because it's like, imagine there's a reason we write love letters instead of reading them out loud to the people that we love. It's really, it was harder than I thought. I mean, I'm a big crier, but
this, so this is like the love letter to the Midwestern residents.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Huh. To more specific Kansas City. More people are going to buy it than Kansas City. We know your book's doing well, but
yes.
But it's like, is it to the Kansas City folks first? Because for me, it would be to my Northern Kentucky people first.
Yeah. It is Kansas City is the last group I thank in the acknowledgments. I say, I might get through it without crying this time. Thank you to whatever, whoever, blah, blah, blah. And at the end I say, thank you, Kansas City. I made this for you. Thanks for making me. That is how I feel. And that was kind of the emotion imbued in it. But having been to those other places, there are I'm from Kansas City. That's why I love Kansas City. If I were from Milwaukee or Madison, or Cincinnati, but yes, no, I think it's because I'm from Kansas City. And in fact, my agent is also from Kansas City, and we had to, we made sure to have a couple of other Midwesterners read it because we wanted it to be not just for Kansas City. But yes, of course it is.
So other than your book here in 2023, what's on your mind?
Oh, I mean, I'm thinking about the writer's strike a lot. And I'm thinking about, I wasn't before, but I had a really interesting conversation a week ago with a guy who works in AI and talking about AI and art and specifically comedy. And it really is all I've been thinking about for the past week is, do I believe that AI is going to be able to do what I do eventually? And I don't think so. And I don't think so in that idealistic, art is how we grow as humans or whatever. I believe that. But the reason that I think that AI is going to be able to do a lot of stuff, and I don't not believe it's going to get better than what it is. I think people who are AI is not going to be able to do this. Look at how it's bad now. I'm like, that's silly. Have you ever look at a Nokia cell phone?
That's head in the sand stuff.
You know what I mean? Look at a Nokia cell phone. But the conversation that we were having was, okay, how is AI going to be able to write comedy, for instance, for a late night joke? Okay. And I was having a conversation with this guy, and it was
It's a deep dive, a true conversation.
it was a real conversation
Without agenda. Let's really
Right.
think about
yeah,
this.
exactly. And I was saying this to my sister. I was like, we really got into it, and I mean got into it as in delved into the topic, not got into it as in like
Yeah.
got
Like,
into
let's
a fight.
go deep.
Yeah. And so what he said was, what it will do is it will then the next step is face reading. Like, it will gauge reaction. It'll say,
It's going to gauge how we're feeling about something.
yeah, it's like what makes people laugh, and then it will recreate what makes people laugh, and so it will be able to take the news and write a joke, and I believe that eventually that will be true. Right now it can't, and I have tried to train ChatGPT how to write certain jokes, and it can't. It doesn't know how to do that yet. But will it be able to write a basic level or even a pretty high level joke? Of course it will. Absolutely. Like my watch knows if I have atrial fibrillation. Like, of course it will be able to write a joke based on a news headline. But the thing about good comedy and even good art is that we are not sure if it's going to work. And AI is going to have all of the experience.
And all of the past context.
All of it. And I think that will be the problem. Because then we get into, we were talking earlier about like, what's your definition of the objective? It's like, okay, it's a good joke. Does it make the most people laugh? Does it make half the people laugh the hardest? Does it make, you know what I mean? Of course, we'll be able to tailor for certain audiences and whatever. But
there's no improvisation.
And jokes work sometimes. And sometimes they don't. And there is no, like, you're not going to find the perfect ratio, I don't think, of shared understanding. And in order to do that, I think you lose the ability to surprise people. Because you can't learn, I don't think, always what will make people laugh from what they have already laughed at. Because you also need to know what are they experiencing in their daily lives and all of this other stuff. The other thing is, an AI is not going to pitch a joke that it thinks is funny. It's going to pitch a joke that it thinks people will laugh at.
Is that bad?
I think that it is not going to be as good. Because I pitch jokes that I think are funny. And I want them to work. And AI is not going to want anything to work. AI can't want. And the other thing, and this is what was really fascinating, then I asked this guy, I said, if AI says a joke to you and you laugh at it, will it know why?
Don't know.
No, it won't know what part of the joke that you thought was fun. It won't know what resonated with you.
Unless it's a human robot with AI looking at me.
Right.
Reading it.
Right.
That's going down deep rabbit
Right.
holes. But so here's the question. I saw, there's one of these stocks just going through the roof. It's one of the chip makers recently. I try to watch all the, like NVIDIA or it's something. And it's now it's the first $1 billion valued company of a chip maker. And I don't want to say this inaccurately, but the CEO, I just read it yesterday on Yahoo News or something, but the CEO said AI isn't going to replace people. It's the great people that are going to use AI to replace people. And here's how that just popped in my head was, okay, will AI replace everyone but the best writers?
Very possibly. Or and the other thing is, like, if we and that's one of the things that the writers are working for right now is, like, we are happy to use AI as a tool.
Like, how would it write this book? Maybe, I'm wondering, in 20 years, can it write as good of a book?
depends on what you want from the book.
Yeah.
Like, could it do this? No. Because so much of this is wrong. So much of this does not make, 60% of the people or whatever laugh. So many people would read this and say, well, I've never had that experience. So literally go look at the Goodreads reviews. Some people are like, it's funny if you like snark and sarcasm. And I'm like, yeah, I do. That's why I wrote it. Like, also, my good woman, did you read who I write for? Like, I don't.
Come on. What do you think this is?
What do you think this is? But it's, plenty of people don't understand it. But that is what we do. Like,
here's what AI is not going to do in our business. It's not going to replace the best salespeople. It's not. Because the best salespeople are connectors and communicators. It will replace, it can probably perform the function of mid-tier and lower, whatever that is. I'm not evaluating human, but whatever their mid-tier performance is. It's going to replace them because that's not that beneficial to other humans anyway.
Right.
Only the greats benefit us. The best books, the best comedians, the best restaurants. That's the stuff that makes like movement in our minds and our hearts, right?
Yeah.
That's the stuff. So.
Well, and also it's like some people don't. For people, because again, I don't think it's overall a bad thing. Some people who are not good writers and want to do other stuff with their lives, if you say like, and even like, once it gets to a baseline high level, you can say, hey, like, write a thank you email to those people that I just showed a house to. Mm-hmm. They liked X, Y, and Z, and they'll write it, and then you can go in and add the personal stuff.
See, that's how I see it. Yeah. I see it as I was talking to our social media and production team yesterday. We sat down for like 30 minutes, and I said, hey, there's a new app. They're all the time, but there's a new app. So right now, we'll take this podcast, and within 3 to 5 days, there are probably 30 to 40 pieces of legit content that are good.
Yeah.
That right now, we might think we know what they are, but they see it, and they'll lay text over it, and sometimes for Facebook, sometimes for Instagram, sometimes for YouTube, and they'll do that. But there's a new app that you upload any video longer than like 2 or 5 minutes, up to an hour, and within 60 seconds, it pulls out 10 shorts, lays text over them, and also tells you how they're going to perform on social. So what I told them, I was like, guys, now what we still need is we need to make sure it's our voice.
Yeah.
But here's what's we can probably now do. That would normally take 6 hours. We now can do the same thing with 3 of us that it used to be 8.
Right.
So that's what it's doing. It's cutting out a lot of the stuff, right, that is just monotonous, that really isn't creative. So I don't think that's bad. It makes the world a lot more efficient. Now, what that does for jobs, I don't know. That's another conversation.
Well, yeah, I think it's a conversation about universal basic income.
Yeah.
And I think, to me, that's a no-brainer. Mm-hmm. Because at a certain point, right, we talk about jobs as being of benefit to society, but, like, some of them are. But if people's jobs,
we could have podcast number 2 on this.
We could.
I'm going to let you go, but I'm going to hold back. I'm going to let you go on this. Keep going about the job thing. Keep going. Universal basic income. Yeah.
The universal basic income, I think it's if there is not the same, if a lot of the things that we need within the world can be automated, it's like I said before, hard does not inherently equal valuable. Now, you gain benefit from being excellent and skilled. You would have more money. But I don't think that not being able to cut a video as fast as a computer disallows or disqualifies someone from being able to eat and house themselves.
Just got to find something else for them to do. Or you're saying if there's not those jobs left.
Why do we have to find something else for them to do?
All right, so here's what I think. So I'm going to say something that I've learned about life. That then is a lot of big. It's a big conversation. Life inherently is not fair. I know that and believe that. I look around this world all the time, and there's a lot of context as well. But life's not fair. It's not. And so this argument of fairness, I know even though it's not fair, all of us want it to be. Because so often, so many people, they want the same number of PTO days. They want the same vacation. They want the same pay. They all want it to be completely equal and fair. If you're going to have people that are actually working, doing a job, we're going to have certain people. Like, for example, for me to have electricity, for me to be able to flip my switch and that electricity to work, there's got to be someone when a storm comes through and that grid is affected, someone has to do that. And if that person has to do that to provide us a good society, but yet there's someone else who doesn't have to do anything, that's not going to seem fair. If that person, that man or woman, has to go out in the storm and work 24 hours to support our society, who decides who to do that or not? That's a tough conversation about, like, and I know, like, drinking water. When I turn on that faucet and I want good water, there's a big infrastructure. There's a lot of people behind the scenes making sure if that's not working well, someone's got to make sure. How's that fair for that society then to give someone else who's able to work that says you get this money but you don't have to? So this fairness piece is tough for me to say we need people and a certain part of society has to do it. I don't know. That's just really and I know, and I'm not doing either of those two jobs, but I bet if I went to those people and said, hey, are you okay showing up doing these things for pay for society and someone else doesn't have to, and we're just going to give them these things? I bet they'd probably say no. I'm making an assumption, but I just bet they would. So how do you work through that?
So, well, first of all, I don't think of universal basic income in terms of fairness. I think of it in terms of societal value, right? Because, and you've just said, right? You've just said life isn't fair, but also if we did this, it wouldn't be fair. But
who gets to decide? That's the question.
Well, I think reality does. And reality is that, first of all, many of the jobs that people don't want to do are eventually going to be automated. The ones that, and like, this is going to be an issue, right? Because
it's coming.
There's going to be a huge stratification, right? It's not going to be, working in retail versus the corporate office running AI. It's going to be making $500,000 a year or picking strawberries in a fucking field. That's going to be the difference. You're going to be one or the other because AI is going to do the entire middle, right? Which is, again, and I'm not, this is...
But this is why we have conversations. People can't get... We have to stop getting offended over these conversations, right, and people being upset. Yeah.
But the thing about universal basic income is that in the two scenarios that you just posed, in one of them, a guy who works at a power plant is mad, and in another one, a bunch of people are starving. And I don't see, like, to me, because again, like, the other thing is, there's a difference between, this is a conversation actually that's very interesting to me about the writer's strike too, is people equating, like, wages with a percentage, like a deserved percentage. So for instance, like, your highest, your most successful realtor,
agent, yep,
if they get a percentage of their sales, right, which generates revenue for you as well, yes?
We have to talk about the model, but at a certain point, they get almost all the commission.
Okay, great. Yeah. So they
make way more than I do.
Okay, so then maybe actually this isn't the best example, but like the sales for a broader company, they get a percentage of the sales that they make.
A normal business makes more off the employee than the employee makes.
Right.
Normal businesses.
And so a person who does very, very well in that context will be, if you say, hey, like, annualize what you make in a year, you make more than a nurse, or you make more than a surgeon. like, what does it say about our society that a real estate agent comes like, okay, we're not talking about wages. We're talking about that person earned a percentage of the revenue that they created, right? And that's kind of what's sometimes complicated in the writer's strike, is that people are like, well, your weekly pay is very high. And it's like, well, first of all, we don't earn that every week the whole year. And second of all, we're talking about it as a percentage of the revenue that we generate. And that's an interesting fairness conversation. And so AI is going to be generating a lot of revenue and, potentially or not, either revenue or tax dollars or both, probably both, for a lot of people.
Going to generate a lot of revenue. What it's going to do is if it turns out to be what we think it could be, it's going to replace a lot of the jobs that people were normally paid to do. I don't think it's going to generate more revenue. It's just going to generate the same amount of revenue with removing jobs that used to be paid to humans. That's what's going to happen. So
you think AI implementation is going to cost the same as labor wages?
No. So what I think is it's the same generation of the revenue, but it's removing it from being handed to individuals. That's what I'm saying. So take the money system in the U.S. There's a certain amount of dollars in the system.
Sure.
Until the Fed prints more and approves that, there's a certain amount of true dollars and money that rotates in all these transactions.
Yeah.
And so just by AI, AI is not going to print more money. AI is just going to perform jobs that money used to go to individuals,
right?
And now it's going to be concentrated in whoever owns or runs that AI.
Right. So that's increased revenue because it's a diminished expense.
Yeah, it's the same revenue. I'm not talking profit and loss. It's the same dollars being generated. There's going to be, because you're not handing it to employees, there's more money control. So we're saying the same thing.
Sure.
But from a business perspective, I could make $18 million, but if I have $18 million in expenses, I'm not putting any money in my pocket.
Okay.
So what's going to happen is I'm paying that to employees.
Right.
So what's going to happen is AI will help that company generate $18 million.
Right.
They're just going to be able to keep 10.
Right.
Right. Not saying that's good or bad, but that's what's going to happen.
Well, right.
Yeah.
But and again, this is, when we talk about our values as a society, and the practicality of what we're talking about, it's like what we are saying as a society, if we replace people's jobs with AI,
and there's no jobs,
and there are no jobs,
or not as good at jobs,
right?
Yep, it's a problem.
The fact that you cannot perform your jobs better than a robot disqualifies you from the basic human dignity of food and shelter, and that I don't agree with, and that I do think is a problem that we're dealing with, and I don't think that it is accurate to say that to provide people with basic necessities that they need to live as a society. It's like you were saying about Midwesterners wanting to help each other. I don't think that is learned helplessness. I don't think that is handouts. I think that is acknowledging a reality.
So the good thing is that through these conversations, it's not and this is what's important about society and what it should be. It's not necessarily a disagreement when I say even something like this. Let's take even you being an author out of it. I'm not even going to we named an author, but let's just say an author who sells a lot of books. Let's call it an artist, a singer who sells a lot of tickets. Could be a Bruce Springsteen, could be a Taylor Swift, could be Beyonce, could be. How much of that revenue generated should be given to artists who weren't as good, who didn't make it? To those artists, to that guitar player who goes to Nashville and plays in all those places trying to make it, and they do it for 10 years. How much should Alan Jackson's generation of revenue be handed to those people? That's a question, right? It's the same type of question. For the person that is generating a huge revenue, because there's people that work on, let's just take a country star, people that are building the stages, people that are supporting them. It's same thing here with the strike.
But those are two different things, though.
So, but here's the thing. Let's just say now though that no one goes to watch the entertainer show in Nashville, and they literally can't be employed because their guitar playing or their singing skills aren't valuable to society anymore.
I think they should probably still be able to eat dinner and live in a house.
You got to take that from someone. And I'm not saying me, but we have to say then, who decides? This is what society's got to figure out. Who decides how much of that generation, of that individual performer's effort should be handed to these people?
But so
you can use different words if you want, but we got to decide that.
Well, but I think we're having a similar conversation, a different conversation, which is that there is, the use of like revenue from a job as revenue to live on is what I'm talking about in universal basic income, right? Like that's different than like, for instance,
but
right?
Where does that money come from to give to that person to live? I'm not making an argument if we
Sure.
shouldn't. Where's that money come from? The government doesn't make the money.
Right.
The government takes tax dollars and decides what to do with them.
Sure. Well, to me, that would be, and again, I mean, then you get into a state versus federal distribution of it, which I think is very interesting. But like, if you have more profit going to those companies, that's not expenses. That's going to be increased tax revenue.
Yeah, it's increased revenue.
You know what I mean? It's going to be increased taxable income. But that's the thing is like, if you...
They're going to find ways to protect it.
Well, that's the thing is that's what we got to figure out is like, and again, I'm not all like, you know what I think is going to be great if the government's in charge of giving people money, like of people's livelihood. Like I understand that that's a complicated thing, but I do think it's a false equivalency to say that we are taking from successful people to give to unsuccessful people when what we are trying to create is like, I mean,
I wish utopia was possible, just for the record.
Sure.
I wish it was possible. But the problem is you're going to end up having, and this isn't from listening to all the economists, because I listen to all of them on all sides and read the books and stuff. But the fact is, if there isn't incentive in the system, you're going to have a big group of people not working as hard, whatever that looks like. There's got to be incentive, because I just know, let me speak from I try not to use my personal example too much, but everybody that knows me knows that for the past 18 years of my life, when I obtained a real estate license, they can't point out to anybody else around me in my real estate space for those 18 years that sacrificed as much as me and that has worked as many hours. And then for the past 15 years of this company, and I'm not getting into altruism and all that, but there are significantly more people that work at my company that actually make more than I do. It's a fact. Way more. A big percentage of the people. If there isn't significant payoff at some point, I don't make these sacrifices. I don't. And so if I don't make these sacrifices, if you go around my company, there are a significant amount of people that love that they found this thing. Not saying all of them, but a significant amount. If someone like me and a bunch of other entrepreneurs, bunch of other people who make sacrifices, writing and entertaining, if you remove that incentive for our system to create true financial independence, I'm not creating this company. I'm not. I'm telling you, I am not. If you knew the sacrifices of the hours that I've made, I'm not going to. Because I'm like, what's the payoff? Nope. I'm just going to work 30 or 40 hours a week because there's no massive upside. And so that's not me speaking to everyone, but I know there's got to be incentive in the system. And so I don't know what that looks like. How much money is enough? I don't know.
But I think that I do not think that incentive and suffering are synonyms. Mm-hmm. And I think that I think that there is incentive to want a better life that does not require the alternative being destitution.
But I could have a better life not sacrificing what I have for 18 years. I could. I could actually, my life would be better right now if I would have continued just to be a realtor. I'm telling you it would have. Like if we sat down and you really knew me, everybody that knows me knows my life would be better. But because there is this big incentive in this system that we have to really totally change the perspective, because let me share it with me. I want to be this person where no one can tell me what to do. I don't care about the amount of money in my bank account. I just know money does give you control, right?
That's so true.
Right. And so I want to have that at a level that also builds a house for my mom, right? That does these sorts of things. And so I just know when I also build that house for my mom, which is a $350,000 house, which I'm going to build next year. When I do that, there's a lot of people getting paid to build that house too, right? When I buy buildings like this, there was an HVAC company up on the roof. Like that repair cost me $14,000, which is absolutely insane. But there's an HVAC company that has workers that are probably union that are getting paid to do the work. So this generation of all this revenue that I'm creating with this company is benefiting a lot of people. But what I'm saying is, and a lot of happy people that are changing their lives, like a Christy I mentioned earlier, if there's not significant more incentive for me to do this versus just to work 40 hours as a realtor, I don't do it, and I don't create this thing that benefits a lot of people. And so I don't know where that mix is. I just know I wouldn't do this if there wasn't. I don't want that to take away from someone. I don't want people to be homeless.
But because
right?
I think that to me the alternative to do you think that you would be less like money not being able people not being able to tell you what to do because you have enough money is a very different amount of money than can feed and clothe my family. And I think that a lot of other people, I think that most people would want to do things with their money and have ambitions to earn and to produce and to work and to
be free,
to be people in society that does not have to come from desperation, that can come from desire. And I would argue that the incentive that you're talking about does not go away if there is universal basic income or some type of social safety net. It doesn't go away because it's not going to give you $350,000 to build your mom a house. All it's going to do is if you've got a kiddo in college or you've got a kiddo working and they become disabled, it doesn't clean you out because that kid can still live a life. They don't have to have a job. You don't have to necessarily support them immediately. If you become disabled or, some other situation occurs, those things are not things that you have to worry about. The ambition, the extra, the writing a book, Who
decides that, though? Who decides what basic needs are?
That is a huge conversation.
There you go.
And that's the slippery slope that we're talking about. Yeah. Is we say that, and I'm not saying that this is a good advice, so we say, okay, well, we need food, clothing, shelter, and safety. That is what we have decided is the universal basic needs. And then someone comes around and says, and you could make the argument for this, okay? I don't know that I would, but you could make the argument. Well, but also we need art. Look at all these studies that say how critical art is to a longer life, right? Okay, great. Add that to the basic needs. It has to be, it's a big societal conversation. But I think that when we get down to what are the basic needs, that's a conversation that I'm interested in.
Yeah.
Do people deserve to have their basic needs met because even though they can't compete with a computer that can cut videos?
No, that's what we're going to figure out, right? So here's what I'm thinking. It's a battle of the way that personally my brain's framed right now compared to is that future where AI replaces a massive amount of jobs, the conversation is going to have to happen. That's in conflict with right now with what I get up here every day. And so, unfortunately, I guess we're framed from our experiences in life and how we educate our brain. That's unfortunately on how that connects. It's fortune or unfortunate. See, I'm a person that every day when I get up, I think it's 100% on me. 100%. No matter how fair it is, no matter what the government's doing for me, no matter, it is 100% on me. And because I have that mentality are one of the significant reasons for where I came from to where I'm at now. But there are a lot of people that are still at the place I came from. And at what point do we hold me and those people accountable that if you want a better life, we all have struggles. We all have trauma. There are things that have happened in all of our lives that we cannot compare. We have to stop doing that because it affects us all differently. At what point do we need people to be resilient and stand up and say, I've got to overcome my challenges. I have to be persistent. It is my job to get out here and work this $16 an hour job, which you don't love right now, but then you can make 22 because you did a good job. So then you can make 28. Because in this marketplace right now, I talk to some of our people that struggle to be good salespeople, and I'm like, guys, right now, I can take you to 10 places to get a job from $28 to $32 an hour. We legitimately can in this market. They're advertised everywhere. And that amount of money, it gives you an awesome apartment.
In Cincinnati, for sure.
That's what I'm saying. Awesome here.
Yeah.
And so I just want to make sure that 2.2 million people that live here, it's like, hey, guys, you don't have to have a college degree. Like, if you're somebody and you find yourself being 31, and maybe some of the choices or even some of the unfortunate shit that's happened to you, just so you know, you don't have to accept that as your life. Like, there's a way within 2 years or 3 years or 4 years you can really pick yourself up and start making some different decisions in your life to live a better life. I see it every day, and I think if we have to be careful as a society that we don't support the idea that that's not still true. And I don't know if it's true in New York. I don't know if it's true in Chicago, right?
I also don't think that it's true at a certain level of human experience where you're not having your basic needs met. Like, if you are not safe in your environment, it is actually not all on you, right? Your body has a physical reaction to that, and if you are in that environment, that is actually going to dominate your experience. And there is I also think that what we decide that we know better than people.
I just know what's better for me.
Is right.
And here's what was better for me.
Right.
Here's what's better.
And so if someone else says, if I had money for food for my kids, or even if, how about this? If my kids got to eat free lunch at their school.
Which
right?
they do here.
I mean,
and on weekends.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that was one of the biggest.
And I'm not against that.
Yeah, right.
I'm not against
so
it.
if I know that my kids get to eat at their school, I'm telling you, it's going to be easier for me to get a job, because then I'm going to be able to feed myself, and I'm going to be physically capable of doing what needs to be done.
I'm not saying it's not. I'm not at all. I just know that I've seen a lot of people change their life in significant ways that if they didn't take control and make some really hard decisions every day, that they wouldn't have ended up in the really beneficial and good and supportive program they are. This is what I'm not disconnecting empathy from this.
Sure.
Right? At all. Because it was good that there was some of that when I was a kid.
Yeah.
However, at 28 years old, when I had started a real estate company, and the housing crisis of 2008 comes along, and I have a mortgage, and I have an office lease, and I have a company support, and we couldn't sell any homes. I'm 3 weeks away from bankruptcy. That means I'm out of money. I am out of money. And when you have 3 weeks of money in the bank, and I have a business, and I have personal expenses, I don't think it's anybody's job to save me. So much so, moms know, right? Moms know. Sometimes it's dad, but my mom knew. And she picked up the phone, and she said, "Do you need money for food?" I owned this company. It was really small. do you need money for food? My pride, being a younger guy, similar to your age now, I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, listen, moms know things. And I said, hey, just so you know, your money for food wouldn't help me. There's one person and one person alone that's going to fix this. It's me. But what I didn't share with her or anybody else was, for about 3 months of my life, I'm eating out of my change jar. I'm going to Wendy's for a 5-piece chicken nugget and getting a 99-cent burger once a day for 3 straight months. No one's giving me any financial support. No one's helping me. And I knew the only thing that was going to change my outcome and fix that is if I went out and found some customers, I went and found someone to represent buying and selling a home in the midst of a financial crisis where we couldn't sell any homes. And from the pit of that comes this thing people see today. And in that moment, I hadn't even finished my college degree. I'm doing night classes at a local college that, guess what? I'm paying for myself as well. This is not a good world for people to sit back and look for other people to support them in their lives, because what I know, if I would have done that, I could have. Someone I could have picked. If I would have done that, I'm telling you right now, I would not have built what I built. These people wouldn't have this awesome place to work, and I wouldn't have become this person. And so I don't know what piece of that not everybody can become, is capable of, but I know this. If somebody would have told me back then that that wasn't possible, that maybe it's too hard, I don't know. Maybe I don't. Like, that's my real experience in my life.
Yes. And I understand, and I appreciate that. You think that if your mother had given you food or money for food, that all of the resilience that you just spoke of would have gone away?
There's a strong chance that some of it, that fight to no one's coming to help me, there's a chance I rely on it, yes. There is a chance that I know that my needs are taken care of so I don't have to fight. And so in that moment, I'm a realtor. I don't have health insurance. I don't have any of these things. I didn't have any of that. And so I'm just saying that, and the thing I'm going to continue building in my life and positively building this to affect other people's lives, I want to take those marks and let them know you can change your life, but you're going to have to fight for it.
So would you be in favor of legally eliminating the possibility of inheritance?
Well, I'm never going to get any. I didn't get any, so I don't even know what that is, right? And so
here's... Well, but what I'm saying is, like, you're talking about not giving things to people who are poor and don't have anything. But the values that you're talking about of people not having to fight, if we really believe that that's such a high stakes thing, that people never have to work anything in their lives, then it would follow that people who get money from their parents should not be allowed to receive that. Would that make sense?
Yeah, so here's the struggle, which I would know, is that if someone else, like, let's just say, so I didn't go to a private school. So there's a couple of schools right here. One's Covington Catholic, the other one's Notre Dame, really high-level schools. Traditionally, unless you get one of the, there's some people that have of needs, they let a certain amount of people go there a year. But if you're someone where their family pays to go to that school, what I know is somebody in that family has succeeded enough to decide to pay for their kids to go to that school versus go to the public education like I went to. So there's something those families are doing to succeed, to generate more wealth, more income, to do that. I'm not anti that. And so I don't think that it's that family's job to give it to me. So it has to go somewhere. And so I know that those families, some generation ago, a grandparent, a parent, did something in society that they generated a lot of value in a capitalistic system, that there was something of value they did that afforded their family to do different types of things. I'm in support of that. I'm not, because they had a different advantage to go to that private school than I had at public school, I'm not mad about it. I just know that's the lack of fairness. But I also don't expect those families to give that money to anyone else outside of paying normal taxes, what the government decides that needs to be paid for the infrastructure for people. So this isn't, I'm someone that believes
Right.
that I need to make sure that I earn my way, that I have an obligation to society, that I hit the lottery. Doesn't matter I was born poor.
Right.
I hit the lottery of being a U.S. citizen compared to all these other terrible places. Amazing, hit the lottery. So I actually feel a sense of responsibility and obligation to make sure that this society maintains and continues that so other people can benefit from it. And I also have this fundamental belief that if we don't continue to have a productive society, like these iPhones that we get to have, a bunch of generations ago, those people that were living very hard lives, hundreds and 200 years ago, built this society that continue that we get to have these things, that we can sit here and talk. And so because of that, I think you take away that incentive. I think it really hurts society. And I just want to make sure that no one is sitting back when we are capable and able to contribute to society. I just want to make sure that.
But what you are saying is that people are allowed to sit back if their parents made different decisions. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, if those families have that money, that's the authority that was given to them based on how society was set up. I'm not going to get it, but it's handed down.
Right.
Yep.
That's an inconsistent application of your value system.
So talk about that. I actually don't want to take their money. I need to earn mine.
Right.
And I'm using my money to build a great company to try to help other people do the same thing.
Sure.
Yeah.
But you have said that you have an issue with people not earning their own money.
Not contributing to society when we're able and capable.
Okay, great. So, but people who don't have to contribute to society, who are able and capable because their families have money, those people are different than people who cannot contribute to society because their ancestors were enslaved, or they're disabled, or their parents. Like these people, society needs more resilience from these people than these people.
Here's what I think. I know that if somebody is capable, I talked about a real estate exam earlier. I can take anybody that is 18 years old, that graduated high school or has a GED. That's a big part of society. Not everyone, but that's a big part. So a lot of these people that are working jobs that we're like, man, that's not a good job. Whether it's $16 an hour, $18 an hour, $20 an hour. As long as they could pass an exam, which is not that hard, I could actually show them how to change the place in their life if they're willing to put in the effort, if they're willing to go all in, make these sacrifices. I can show them how to do that and how to earn it. I just want to make sure that our society continues to be this place that allowed me, who was in one of those tough spots that you and a bunch of other people would tell me it's okay to stay there with the alcoholic dad, who grew up poor, who did college differently, who's like, you know what, he's got some things stacked against him. Maybe I did, compared to these other people.
So, sorry, what part of what I said would have me saying it's okay that you stay there?
Here's what I'm saying. It is, I need the idea reinforced that it is on me. That 18-year-old kid, that 19-year-old kid, that 20-year-old kid, I need society to tell me that it's on me. And if I don't do it, if I don't make some sacrifices, and if I don't do it, listen, you're not going to have a great life. And what I know is that this society and all the people that came before me, no matter these jobs, whether they're building railroads, whether they're working in coal mines, whether they're building the infrastructure, if there weren't people that did those jobs, I wouldn't have this country to live in that I do. I just wouldn't. And so I'm concerned that if we have a society that we build the expectation that people don't have to contribute, that can. That's all I'm saying, that can. That we don't have the same society for all the people that come after us. I'm really concerned about that.
Well, I do think that you're conflating survival with excellence. And I think that I think that the saying you have the bare minimum, wouldn't you like to, what I'm saying is the floor at which people come and say, I would like to change my life. I don't want to live this way anymore. I think that it is fair for us as a society to want that floor to be livable. I don't think people need to be, I think people will strive I think that because excellence is different than surviving. There are some people who want to build companies, who want to create things, and I think that that's wonderful. And I also am not so much of a pessimist to believe that needs to come from a personal depravity. I think you can be desperate to make something of yourself and to do something. I certainly feel a desperation in my ambition, but I do not think is helped when I am incapacitated in a way that that makes me less of the person that I want to be.
Yeah. So I guess that's the thing. Like, see, I wasn't incapacitated when I had no money to eat. I had to go make money. I wasn't incapacitated. There was change in the change jar. I wasn't incapacitated. I learned resilience and certain characteristics then. I learned and developed those that continued to pay off in my life to realize, like, and if we can find people, and I'm not saying it takes that level of sacrifice. That's not the argument I'm making. But I know to succeed, for you to get to a point where you can write a good book.
Sure.
For you to get to a point where you can be a good writer. You didn't get to Harvard over not doing some really good things.
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to let everyone know you got a shot to go to Harvard. You got a shot to write a book. Now, where you're starting, it may be a lot harder. But I have the fundamental belief, like, you got to earn the right. And so I think that's the exact same on, I don't know if an iPhone is a basic right. I don't know if a cell phone is a basic right. I don't know if, so these are, I don't even have these opinions, but I don't know if public transportation's a right. I don't know if, I just know when I was growing up, when unfortunately my dad made terrible decisions and didn't do the right thing for the family that he signed up for, that we were in a spot where we literally had government cheese and government milk, and we had some food stamps. See, I don't know how long that should be available for. I just know this. If it would have been available forever, my mom wouldn't have gone back to work at the same way. She wouldn't have. If we had enough money for housing, where someone paid our housing because my dad was a piece of shit, if the government was going to provide that food for us, my mom didn't want to go back to work. She had a nursing. I'm telling you right now, she did not want to go back to work. But she had to, because the government wasn't going to continue to afford those things. There was no one that was going to pay for us our house to live. Not back then. They weren't. Our church bailed us out on the house payment twice. And I'm not religious anymore. My mom went back to work.
So, sorry, what would have happened if your church hadn't bailed you out?
Here's what we would have been. We would have been probably living with probably my mom's grandparents. That's what would have happened. We would have lived with them in their house.
Okay.
Okay. And so, but here's what I'm telling you. They only bailed us out for 2 payments. 2 house payments. I'm telling you, that's it. And at that moment, she sat down with the people that she looked at that were leaders in the church, and they said, "You have a nursing degree, right?" And she said, "Yeah." They're like, "Guess what you need to do? You need to go to work." Even though she didn't see herself as that. She wanted to be the stay-at-home mom. She had her 4 kids. They said, if society would have provided, like now it kind of does, now that would have been a different outcome for our family. It would have been. She wouldn't have gone back to work. And let me tell you the impact that she made on being a nurse, what it showed me from work ethic, the double shifts she works. She gave her life to us, and me and my siblings, we learned that by her example. 100%. By seeing what was capable. And I'm sure the person that I became at 28 was probably a big part. And if you met her, she lives in the same little country house that I was born in. Like, this is the story almost that our country 50 and 100 years ago, this is the story we told. Like, guys, it's on you. And so I just want to make sure. I told you about me paying for a hotel room for a homeless person. I support people inside my company when they get into spots. But I also make sure that they know that this isn't going to be consistent. So I don't know what the answer is to society, and that's why I'm even – so like, thanks for having the conversation.
Yeah, well, because I do want to point out that story ends very differently if you are not bailed out by the church.
Yeah, for 2 payments.
But
They weren't going to do it anymore.
But it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It
does matter. If they did it for 3 years, my mom wouldn't have gone to work, and I'm telling you, it would have been a different outcome.
Right, but I think that the like you're talking about the limit as the jumping off point, right? And what I'm saying is that holdover, right? That conversation was had in a position with your mom where it was like, okay, now you're not with your grandparents. You're not, there was help in the interim. And what I'm saying is that the cutoff point, like, y'all couldn't make it through that government cutoff point at that point either, right? There is a necessity of, and this interim support, or the support in general, I don't think is an inherently
because that's what basic income
bad
is.
thing.
It would be on forever.
Yeah, but what is the like? What is?
We don't know what it's going to be, right? With the AI piece,
sure,
that's the conversation.
We don't, but I guess the
problem is this exists in our current society right now too much. I see it every day because I look at people. Listen, I'm supportive of philanthropy things I don't even talk about. We go and we give back to. I personally show up at these places.
Sure.
Okay, so I want people to live better lives, but what they need to do is have a bunch of people around them to let them know what their responsibility is and what's possible. And I just see a lot of people coming and picking a lot of things up at these places that I go that drive cars there, that have the ability to, instead of coming and picking that thing up, they actually have the ability to work during that time. Who I feel the worst for are these kids that we go and build beds for in their houses. I feel terrible for them because I want to look at their parents, and say, the 35 pair of shoes you have sitting in this bedroom, I had one pair that was a hand-me-down from older brothers because they made sure I had a bed. I didn't have video game systems. We didn't have those things that society now, I don't know why this is happening, but it's time and time again. Here's what I want. I want kids, I want them to be able to eat. I want them to be able to have a bed they live in. But something has happened in society consistently with a big group of people where they don't know it's on them to take care of those kids, that it's on them to work a terrible job until they can get a raise. And so my concern in this society is, from being a very independent thinker, is like, I want us to develop a ton of Taylors who write books like this, who speak about this Midwestern environment and culture and something special, who can articulate yourself in the way that you can, who educated yourself at a high level. And I'm assuming for the next 20 to 30 years, you're going to find significant ways to give back to society. Because you believe, you were an athlete. You're very competitive. When you're an athlete, you eat what you kill. When you go out and you get 10 boards, or you score 12 or 14 or 16 points, that's because you practiced your ass off. That's because you showed up when you were supposed to, because there were these things that you were taught, that you have to do these things to get this. If not, you're going to be on the bench. That's all I'm saying. I want everybody to approach this life the way I played football, the way I did, to say, hey, listen, you actually have to earn. You don't get to be a starter on the team. I just want us to make sure we earn these things and supporting the people who can.
Yeah, I agree. I think that
we could disagree on a lot.
I think that
where am I wrong? Yeah.
I think that we make a lot of we decide who we make assumptions about and the values that they have based only on what we can see. And to go back to your basketball example, right? I think that I would like to see us shift our thinking, it's me in my own world. It's like, let's look at the reality of the situation, and then let's look at the attitude we have about people, and let's try to make inferences about our shared humanity, about these things that we connect. And if we see and believe that people who need our help are trying their best. For instance, if you saw me in my basketball uniform sitting on the bench in an ankle brace, right? You would not think she is lazy. She didn't go to workouts.
You're right.
She's not a member of
I
this
wouldn't
team.
think that. You're right.
Right? If you saw me at the end of the bench in street clothes, because maybe I had mono and my spleen was distended, and and it was dangerous, you wouldn't say, I don't believe that she deserves to be here.
Correct.
And I think that whenever possible, we should apply the same logic to our fellow people and acknowledge what we are in control of and the knowledge that we have, which is, I know in this moment if this person is hungry or if this person needs help, that I can help them with food or money or this direct intervention.
Whatever it is.
I do not know if I withhold that from them, if it will make them more resilient. And for me and my value system, I am playing the odds that these people are trying, that this is a temporary state, and that I am trusting my father had a friend who had a great quote about it, which is, if I hand someone $1, that's between me and God. I know you're not religious,
It's okay.
but whatever they do with that $1 is between them and God. And I think we remove humanity from people when we help them with conditions without knowing them. Because I think when we say, when we don't believe that people are doing what they can because of their situation, that we don't know.
Yeah, there's a lot of context. And so I think, so I agree with you with that. And it's not that we have to agree on things, but I also want to make sure, so I agree, without knowing what somebody's gone through, their experiences in life, we don't know the stories. We don't know why they're really sitting here and what's happened. We don't know if they've been through war and they have PTSD. We don't know what someone's type of abuse has been in the past. We don't know that. But here's the one thing I know when I look at people that are struggling. I look at them and I say, hey, I care. I've done this so many times. People don't even know. There's so many conversations about employees and people in this company. I sit down and say, hey, listen, I'm not you and I'm not in your shoes. But here's what I know. We got to find a way for you to get through these emotional barriers and truly the impacts on what's happened in your life. We have to be able to do that for you. Because if you aren't going to be capable to start making some different decisions in your life, if you're not going to do it, your life's pretty much going to look the same. And you don't want that, right? They're like, no, I don't want it. Okay, so I just need you to know that there's a possible outcome that's different. And I just want you to know also that that responsibility is going to be mostly on you to make sure that when I show you these steps, that you're going to be the one that's going to have to take them to have the life that you want. I'm not going to be here to always write you a check. I'm not always going to be here for these things. So I need to know that you don't get health care for the next decade without doing something. I just need to know that I'm not going to pay for this roof to be over your head, for this cable to be on, for that cell phone. I'm not going to, if you're capable, and I'm sitting here and have a capable conversation, we're going to help you work through these things. And the principle that this is founded in is that if we do that for them, who's the person to decide whether or not they're capable? Because I know this, the more we have people that we deem aren't capable, we're sure putting a lot of weight on the people that we deem capable. Because they're having to go out here and we have these expectations of blue collar, white collar, all these different levels of income who are paying taxes. We're putting it on their shoulders to have a productive society. And if those people start to get fewer and there start to become people who aren't contributing, that is not, if you look at societies over history, that is not going to be a good outcome. I don't know what that answer is, because at some point, if we have this basic income and our country stops producing things, and the rest of the world is producing things, whatever that is, and we're not involved in that economy, somehow, some way, I don't know what it looks like. I don't know how we're going to be able to pay for all this stuff. I don't know how.
Yeah.
That's an issue. That's what I'm looking at.
Well,
like, how do we do it?
I mean, I think I just fundamentally disagree that removing desperation removes innovation. Because I could work at, I make things, I mean, now I'm not making any money, but
But you're making good things.
But I'm making good things,
Yes.
right? And I made money for this thing, but I didn't, I worked for a very long time making money doing something else and doing writing on the side for free in order to be able to get where I wanted to go. And I do not think that I would have been helped or given the freedom to do and make and be great. I do not think that would have been helped by any type of social anxiety. I got very ill. I don't think that helped my art. I don't think that being sick made me a better person. I think that it, revealed the person I am or whatever. But I do not think that I needed to suffer to be able to make the things that I make. And I think that a lot of great people have suffered, and that resilience has made, contributed in no small way to their greatness, to their perspective, to their, I think it's really, I mean.
I give you kudos though, right?
Yeah.
You know, what I'm saying for you is that it's not my job to determine if you had desperation or not, but you're making an argument that it didn't come from desperation. So here's what I'm saying.
Oh, I think it came from a desperation that was a desperation and a desire that I don't believe was equated to me not having my basic needs met.
I get it. So here's what
I
I'm
think
gonna
that
give you.
exists independently.
Guess what someone did to make sure you did it? Someone in your past. I don't know what generations. I don't know if it was your parents or someone else. Someone else made a lot of significant sacrifice in their life. I guarantee they did. This is how life happens. Someone at some point in your history made a lot of sacrifice in their lives to set it up to then give you the opportunities that you have in your life. But then guess what you did? You took ownership. See, this is what we're disassociating, but you did.
But I did. And so I guess what I'm saying, I think we're saying the same thing. I just think, and forgive me, but I think that there is a hair trigger response to people being, to people being given things. And I based on what you're saying, it's like, I don't find consistency in your argument, which is that, yes, someone else did that for me. And it doesn't matter who it was, and I still had this striving element.
So here's what I believe. So I'll make sure I'll clarify it. I think that I carried this same principle on from how I grew up, that when my family was struggling, there was temporary assistance that different aspects provided. And most of it wasn't from the government, and it was very limited from the church setting, but there were temporary, limited assistance that was given. And at that point, that bails out someone from making bad decisions. But then that group of people sits down and says, hey, this moment, we're going to help this moment. But just so you know, this isn't going to continue. You now have to take responsibility for your life. And so I am an enormous fan of when bad things happen in people's lives, yeah, man, like, don't make it ruin their life. Don't make it so they have to go file bankruptcy. But then you also have to sit down with that person and say, hey, you can't expect these people around you who have done the things I'm talking about to then let you continue to live this life. So that's what I'm saying. My principle and who I am, just to be clear about it, is, yeah, and I still do those things for people today. But I think what you did was, you actually did what I'm talking about. You're a very responsible person, because what I heard you say earlier was, when the strike happened, you and your husband sat down and had a conversation. How many months, how much money. So guess what, though? Someone afforded you the effort to be able to not to have desperation, but then you still took responsibility. You guys made a plan within it like, hey, what's this look like? Let's budget it out. At some point, if you got to a spot where you all ran out of money completely because of this strike, I'm assuming there's someone in your life that would help.
Yeah.
But here's what I know. They wouldn't help forever. They would expect you to get a job. Am I right?
I mean, so this is
what I'm wanting society to do.
But this is what I'm saying is, like, yes, I'm going to take your premise to its logical conclusion to use my situation as a microcosm, and it's your situation too, which is I wouldn't expect them to help forever. I wouldn't want them to help forever. But what and I think we agree on that, and I think both of us as people, and I think what I'm saying and what my big argument is like, I'm not saying that universal basic income is a $350,000 house, a new car, and an air fryer, and like 75 Applebee's gift cards. What I'm saying is that I believe that there is a difference between people who are unsatisfied with the direction that their life is going and unsatisfied with what they are doing, unsatisfied with the way that they wake up every morning, unsatisfied with that, and people who are genuinely suffering because their needs are not being met. And I think that people here, people whose basic needs who are being met, but they are like, they have a roof over their heads, but man, they wish they had a garden outside, or they have enough to eat, but gosh darn it, they need to be doing more vegetables, or they've done things. To me, that I agree with. That is, there's an element of you have to take responsibility. Nobody's going to change it but you. We're freaking grown-ups, Moms know, but they're not going to be around forever. And also, at a certain point, if they call you and ask you if you had your vegetables today, you're going to be like, shut up, Mom, and hang up the phone. That I do firmly believe. I do not believe that is worse. In fact, I believe that this is better. I feel like this gives room for more innovation, for more people creating more jobs than saying, like, working for fulfillment, working to make a better life for yourself, I believe is different than working to be able to live at all. And that is something that I believe. I think that is something as a society that we should have conversations about how everyone can be able to live. And then those who take responsibility and surround themselves with, people who can, pick them up when they're down, who can pick them up when they're down, and who can say, hey, you're actually not down right now. You just need to start climbing. Like, you feel down, but there's nothing for you down there. Like, you need to get up. But I don't think that requires feeling desperate or hungry or scared or unable to get the medical help that you need.
Big debates, right? I think not to even counter to disagree, I just want everyone to know, no matter which one of those situations they're in, most likely they're the only person that can change the outcome. Because if someone else does give you something, like, that's fine, but you're going to stay right where you are.
I disagree.
Really?
Yes.
So you think by other people giving us things and having the idea or the faith that we're going to consistently be able to receive that, you think the idea is reinforced that they're not the ones that need to take action?
That's not what I said at all.
Okay. So tell me what you disagreed with.
What I disagree with is that being given things inherently hampers success or drive. In fact, I believe that asking for things that you need, of the people who can give them to you is a critical component
That's a great society. That's a good tribe. Like that's how society used to be, right? When there were like Americans, when they lived on plains, and like societies raised kids and they ate
Right.
together, and they but that's not what's happening now. Like when there would be a village of 200 people, they all
Sure.
looked out for each other,
Uh-huh.
right?
But like my
I've
boss
just-
called and said we would like to give you the opportunity to write for the TV show.
Yeah.
What am I going to say? Oh, you're just handing it to me. It's like, no.
No, but something you did earn that.
Yeah.
The person that you were, the responsibility you took in the past, earned that call.
So logically what you're saying is that someone who is that there it is possible to not deserve food.
No, I'm actually not saying that.
But
I'm actually saying that.
if you're saying that
No.
giving something
Yeah, no,
being given something
Yeah.
has to be earned.
yeah, I think everything in life should be earned and nothing given. That's for me.
Right.
Me fundamentally. See, this is who I am. I don't believe you or him should literally give me anything. And that's where I came from. Only earned, not given. That's been the experience of my life. And I know what's possible then. And so, yes, and I think if something is given, if it is, it's got to be so temporary because you will form habits in people. We talked about practice earlier. You can form very bad habits in life and very good habits. And so I know for me, the more I'm given, the less I'm going to work and earn. For me, I know that. And so, and I look around in the books from so many philosophers and people in the past. Man, I tell you what, this thing about it's important to earn, to train yourself, to develop habits, to develop traits. Man, that's so important. And if we say whatever you practice at, the better you get, if you don't practice, you're going to be relying on a lot of other things. So that's just where I come from. I mean, this is what opinions are, right?
Yeah.
This is what they are. I just know I look around. If I'm sitting around waiting for people to give me something, for whatever reason, if I'm waiting for a check, if I'm waiting for money, if I'm waiting for food, if I'm sitting waiting for that, expecting someone else to deliver it, that's going to cause inside of me, if I'm waiting and expecting that, it's going to cause me to take less action to go actually earn the thing that someone's giving me. If I know that that is there, yeah. And what I believe from being around humans, I believe it does develop that habit, that trait. What I want to say is, let me help you. Let me support you. I don't know exactly why you found yourself in this situation, but at the same time, what I need you to know is you need to do this. And so I don't know. I mean, we got off on a tangent, right?
No, but
Yeah.
I think it's interesting. I think that there is a difference between accepting something that you're given and expecting to be given things at a consistent level. I don't believe that they are like it. It's one thing to expect to not have to earn anything, but I don't think that that is the same thing as taking things that are given to you. And part of that is, and you know, to kind of circle back to
Midwestern,
the
yeah,
book.
yeah.
Well, to kind of circle back to me as a general person, it's, you know, a lot of my gifts as a person, I don't like, they are inherently unearned, right? The work that I put in for my accolades as a person, that is earned. But I'm very smart, and science indicates at a certain point that that is not something I earned, right? My grades, what I did with it, sure, but I did not earn my level of intelligence. You know, I am like we said. What did neither of us earn? Being born in the United States, big star in terms of opportunities available for us. I am, you know, everything mostly works. I'm missing a couple organs because of illness, but for the most part, I'm pretty healthy. That's another thing that, you know, that I didn't earn. And there is a goal that I kind of like to like push for myself in terms of my values and how I want to live my life is to make the most in this life of what I do think are unearned gifts. So it's like, how do you earn, how do you make it good for whatever, ethereal or not reason that you believe that they are yours? How do you make the most of them? And that is something that I'm, interested in all the time. But I think that,
Isn't it funny? So it really is. I mean, we're sitting down here having a conversation around the book, but you come from, what I love is sitting here talking to people like where you came from Kansas City, you made it to Harvard, you're a writer on a show that a lot of people would look at as, wow, that's really cool. And I'm sure there's a lot of conversation around it. You now live in New York City. You've been there for 9 years. You write books. It's funny that you're a high achiever. You're very smart, but I've met a lot of smart people who don't become writers on shows, who don't make it to Harvard, who don't write the book, who don't have the initiative and the competitive spirit. So what I'm saying is, even though you disagree with a lot of the things of who I am, and I don't even think I'm learning. I'm not just disagreeing with you. It's just me articulating stuff. You're actually the person that I'm talking about. That kudos to you, because 100 years ago, you wouldn't have been able to vote.
Yeah. But 100 years ago, yes. Who is doing math now? I would just have been able to vote.
Right? See what I'm
Brand
saying?
new.
Yeah. Brand new. And so...
Actually, 50 years ago, I would not have been able to vote because I am married to an immigrant and would have sacrificed my U.S. citizenship.
Isn't that wild?
Isn't that wild?
So here's what I'm saying is that we need to make sure that all of us have the opportunity to find ourselves in this country. I can't speak to experience other places. I can't. We can read the books. That the possibilities are endless for the contribution that they can give to society. I bet I don't have the IQ level of you. I'm serious. I don't. Right? But that doesn't limit the things I can go out here in the world and achieve.
No.
Where I came from compared to, we had a very different upbringing. We're both doing impactful things.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that everybody understands that, listen, if you choose to go out here and do good things, if you choose to go all in, I guarantee you this competitive spirit, this work ethic, all these things you have, if you take the person that you are at 30 and you continue to compound and grow that over the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years, this most likely is a very small percentage of what you're going to accomplish.
Yeah, that's the hope.
That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying, because you're doing this stuff. And so I just I want everybody to know, like, they can be you.
Yeah.
They can be me.
Oh, 100%. And I think that is, and again, we're speaking the same language at a certain level of people's needs being met, right? Because I believe that anyone can do this, but I do not believe that you are a failure if you are in a situation where your basic needs are being met or you're sick or whatever.
See, we're agreeing more as we go.
Yeah. The thing about this, the thing about writing and creating and doing all this stuff is it is such a dance of, it is the work to be yourself and the work to express yourself, and also understanding how to be received, which is such a fascinating.
You don't always hit it either.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't.
And also, it's not like, I mean, it's kind of salesy a little bit.
Sell the book.
Like, well, it's kind of salesy to, like, you sell your joke. You want to identify, the people that you're talking to. You want to have your own. You want to be coming from a place that's real, right? I'm sure that your sales team, if they your best salesman can sell a house that they think is a piece of crap, but
No, the right thing to do is to connect with someone needs, who they are, right? Establish a relationship, and actually just, so it's no different than a comedian. Like, you want to tell a joke they laugh at.
Right.
Okay, we want to sell them a house that's going to be good for them.
Exactly. Yeah. And the thing about comedy that's so funny is you have to guess at that relationship.
Yeah.
You have to guess.
And be good enough when you're wrong and you can still correct it.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
I'm
and
sure
respond
that's how it goes on stage.
Well, and this is the AI thing that I'm talking about, is like an AI is going to know that it's wrong, but it's not going to know why.
Yeah.
And
they can't improvise. That's what I was saying.
Yeah.
They can't improvise in the moment. And
No.
if whoever AI is, if they do ever gain the ability to have emotions and feel and to improvise, we're probably all in trouble.
oh yeah, that's a whole different problem than comedy. That's going to be super, super bad. That's like, I'll be telling jokes in the whatever underground bunker we're all
Yeah, you won't be
hiding
telling
in.
jokes because
Yeah.
they won't let you.
Yeah,
right?
no.
Yeah.
They will.
All right, so thanks for the good discussion.
Yes.
Even some tough, uncomfortable debate at times, right? And no, I mean, I think that's what makes our society good.
Yeah.
Is for people to share different perspectives, opinions. I'm excited for even those Kentucky non-Midwesterners.
I'm so sorry, Kentucky.
No, you're
I
not.
love you guys so much.
Okay, whatever. Write a southern conversation. So
But I can't. You can't.
no, I can't.
Because you're in the Midwest.
Yes.
I know. That's
But thanks for writing this. It's exciting, and I'm sure that you're going to learn things you probably already have from writing this book. It's already on your mind for the next one, I bet.
oh yeah. That's the other thing. That's the small thing is when selling a book is different than writing a book, and you got to realize it's like, oh, I'm in selling mode. I got to be doing the other thing.
So were these 3 hours a day worth maybe 3 sales?
Yeah.
See, there you go. That's
You
what I'm
guys all got to go buy the book
or listen to it on Audible.
or listen to
You
it
can
on
buy it that
Audible.
way,
It's
yeah.
me. It's my voice. If you're not tired of it already, it's about 6 hours of my voice, and get it for your friends. It's a great Father's Day gift.
Oh,
Dad
see,
will
now
love
you're hitting
it.
us on that, right?
Right?
If we would have been before Mother's Day, you would have said,
I would have said it's a great Mother's Day gift. And if we had been slightly before that, I would have been like, do you have graduates who are going to school in the Midwest?
so
I'm
basically,
ready. I've got all the. They've got the calendar for me.
it's a book for 12 months. Just buy it for Father's Day right now.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Here's to all the luck in 2023 and wrapping up the writer's strike. Let's get that over with. Let's get it over with,
come
right?
on, let's
Get back
do
to work.
It. I want to work so bad.
And we want good creative stuff to be out on TV and all this
Yes.
stuff. So,
Oh,
Okay.
I miss working so bad. We all do. You
See?
dumb studios.
see, I know you do. I know you miss work.
Yeah.
I had to hit that at the end. All right. Thanks. Awesome to meet you. Okay.